All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the County of Los Angeles Citizen Redistricting Commission special meeting. Today is December 5th, 2021, and the time is 3:03 p.m. We will now call the special meeting to order. For this meeting, we have available interpretation services. For those who are joining via Zoom, please select your preferred language by clicking on the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen, which is a globe icon. Select English or Spanish. You then can choose to mute the original audio for clearer interpretation. If you do not choose a language, you will not hear the interpretation. As a reminder to the public, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to youtube.com/LA County Redistricting. The link to the recording will also be posted and accessible through the Los Angeles County Redistricting website. If at any time any members of the public have any technical difficulties, please let us know in the Q&A and we can work towards fixing the issue. I will now take the roll. As a reminder, commissioner names will be called in a rotating alphabetical order by last name. Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Mark Mendoza.
Present.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales.
Present.
Commissioner Nelson Obregon.
Present.
Commissioner Priscilla Orpanella Segura. Okay, I do not see Commissioner Orpanella Segura, so Commissioner Haile Soto, excused. Commissioner Zaida Soto.
Present.
Commissioner Brian Stetcher.
Present.
Commissioner John Vento.
Yeah, present.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Dorina Wong.
Present.
Commissioner Jean Franklin.
Present.
Commissioner David Holtzman. Commissioner Mary Kenny.
Here.
And Co-Chair Daniel Maeda.
Present.
Okay, a few notes regarding public comments before I hand it over to Co-Chair Williams. If you are interested in making a live public comment, you may submit in the Q&A your name, your affiliated organizations, if any, and the agenda item you would like to make a public comment on. And today we only have one agenda item, 5A. When you are called to make your public comment, you will be prompted to unmute your mic so you can speak. And if you are participating via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. And once called upon, press *6 to unmute and speak. Each person will have one opportunity to speak for 1 minute per discussion or agenda item. When you begin making your comment, please share your name and any affiliation you may have. Again, the Q&A is for members of the public to sign up to make a live public comment. If you have additional comments you would like to make, including public comments for specific draft maps, they can be submitted to the public comment form. And you can find the link in the chat or on the CRC website. And submitting to the public comment form, ensure your written comments are accurately recorded. Filling out the public comment form does not mean signing up to make an oral comment at today's meeting. Again, the only way to sign up to make an oral comment at today's meeting is by submitting your name, affiliated organization, and agenda item number to the Q&A. So as a reminder to those who are making public comments this afternoon, all oral public comments will be through audio only. There will be no sharing video option. Again, members of the public are encouraged to submit to the public comment form even if they make oral public comments. And on the public comment form, you can submit comments, but also indicate your position on draft map options. If you have specific recommendations on how to modify existing draft map options, please include in your public comments specific details, including names of cities or communities and street names. Okay, and would you like me to go through the public comment form?
I think it would be great. You'll do a much better demo than I did earlier. All
right, so as mentioned before, you can access the public comment form through the CRC website and in the chat. So through the CRC website, you can go to the public comment form on the homepage. You'll see here a button, submit comments for meetings and hearings. It'll open up the public comment form on a separate tab. And from there, you will need to fill out your first name and your last name as indicated by the asterisk. And so just to test it out here. Here you can also upload any files, PDFs, draft map options, for example, if you would like. And then you will need to click on a specific agenda item. Once you click on the specific agenda item, you will need to put a position in favor, oppose, or other. And then you can add optional comments if you would like. From there, once you are done selecting which agenda items you would like to make a comment on or place your position on, you can go down to the bottom enter in the security code, and then press next. And once you press next, it's a verification page. And so this still does not mean that you have submitted to the public comments yet. It will only be submitted to the database once you click on acknowledge. Once you click on acknowledge, it will confirm that you have submitted your public comment, and then we will receive it on the database. And any public comments we receive today during the meeting will be uploaded to the website after today's meeting. Okay. So with that, I will turn the agenda over to Co-Chair Williams.
Thank you, Ty. In terms of approval of the agenda, there are no changes to the agenda at this time. So the agenda is approved.
And now we're on item 4, the consent items, approval of the minutes for the last 2 meetings, November 29th and December 1st. November 29th. Any changes, revisions to corrections to November 29th's minutes?
I see a hand from Commissioner Holtzman.
To be honest with you, I didn't have a chance to review those minutes, so I might appreciate if we table this to our next meeting.
We definitely wanted to post them, and because the ad hoc working group has been working based to some extent on the comments that are reflected in those minutes. So that is why we have them on the agenda for approval. But you know, they have been posted. Are others ready to vote to approve these minutes?
I too didn't get a chance to read the minutes either. So I would agree with Commissioner Holtzman to postpone.
I assume, maybe I should ask Holly, are there any difficulties with having these minutes held for approval to our meeting on Wednesday?
None at all.
We obviously those events happened. Most of us were there. We can review these minutes. These are a record of what happened at those meetings, but I'm happy to defer if there's consensus that we should defer on those. But please, if you haven't already done so, certainly by Wednesday, please take a look at those so we can get those approved as a matter of course on Wednesday.
So Co-Chair Maeda is the issue around December 1st because of short lead time. I don't know if November 29th, they might be prepared to make a motion to approve those or not.
I'm happy to do that. It sounded like at least a couple of the commissioners had not reviewed November 29th minutes.
Okay, I thought it was a December 1st. Okay.
Co-Chair Williams.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if they had not. Okay, I'm not sure which minutes right now we will not be approving. Is it November 29th, December 1st, or both?
Well, I started with asking about the November 29th minutes, and 2 of the commissioners said they had not had a chance to review them. I got clarification from Holly that we're not bound or restricted in any way from obviously considering the things that happened in those minutes, in those meetings. So I would suggest we just go ahead and defer approval until Wednesday's meeting, unless there's objection. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. We'll defer the approval of minutes until Wednesday.
Thank you.
Next item. So 5A, the main purpose of the meeting today is a working session for the commissioners to reflect on the public comment we've received, to hear from the working groups who have been looking at the map options under consideration. We're going to have a staff report as well, some additional information that will be hopefully helpful to us. We will take public comment, but I suggest we limit public comment today to 30 minutes. so that we can really get to the meat of what we're here today to do, which is to work as a commission in open public session to grapple with the maps and the public comment we've received to date. We've had 3 public hearings, lengthy public hearings. We're going to have another one coming up on Tuesday. So there still will be ample opportunity for the public to provide comments. And as well, we've received not only well over 100 oral public comments at the last public hearing, but we also have some multiple of that, 200 or so written comments. And folks are definitely encouraged to provide those written comments that can be extremely useful in terms of giving specifics. So we'll have ample additional opportunity for to receive your comment from the public, but I want to definitely make sure we have time as a commission to work on these maps. So let's hear from the staff before we take public comment.
So I'm going to go over just sort of a context of this sort of a workshop approach with the commissioners on the map options. Holly then is going to give an overview in terms of the population trends, and then I'll go over slightly a historic overview for the public. The key thing today is this really is your opportunity to synthesize and think about all the public input. It really was around 500 written comments at the last public hearing, and we now have over 102 pages of written comments for today's special meeting. It's also an opportunity for the commission, the public, to see the modifications made to the maps that were being proposed for the public hearing on Tuesday, and to decide if you want to move them forward for further consideration. You may end up honing the maps, making further refinements, and hopefully maybe narrow some of the map options. You'll see too, the map options have some common elements now between them that will be worthy of your close scrutiny. In terms of the public hearing number 3, I already mentioned, and co-chair Maeda mentioned, we had received about 100 oral comments, 500 written comments. What we did as staff was synthesize all of the public input where there were specific suggestions on modifications to the maps. And there's a document posted on the website for today's meeting that not only documents what that synthesis was, but the blue text indicates the changes the ad hoc working groups made to the maps, along with some other tweaks along the way. The other useful thing is we did sort of a check in terms of public input and how they're defining their communities of interest. And there's greater clarity, I think, building on the work from the summer public hearings on community of input. We've gotten a lot from the AAPI community, the African American community, particularly in SD2, San Fernando Valley, East LA, Southeast LA, South LA, South Bay, councils of governments, and then of course the Los Angeles City neighborhood councils. The approach that the ad hoc working groups really did was, as much as, well, they've kept all the cities whole in these next iteration of maps. The one exception is Los Angeles City, given the size of its population and that each subrural district can only have 2 million people. They have also kept the unincorporated areas whole. One of the things I suggested the ad hoc working groups is to address the issue of neighborhood councils that are split between 2 subrural districts when you get it down to one map. And then you can go through and do further analysis and refinement. It's still too much of a moving target, although we have a detailed list and it's in the staff report of which neighborhood councils still remain split. Some of the challenges for the ad hoc working groups, as well as the commission as a whole, is we still have conflicting viewpoints from the public, and you're going to have to use your professional judgment. The other challenge is you are designing subrural districts of 2 million people. So as much as one group of people may not want to be with another nearby group, we have had to look at some of those groups in a more complete way to achieve 2 million. Another great challenge is the requirement to be geographically contiguous. There are communities such as the AAPI community, which is pretty scattered throughout the county. There's also a ripple effect. And by that, I mean you change one aspect of one subrural district, and it's like a ripple effect in terms of other modifications that have to be made in the neighboring subrural districts in order to reach 2 million people. Another big challenge, which we can't solve in this iteration, is LA City does not have a consistent way in defining their communities. We have neighborhood councils. There are 99 of them, but not all of LA City has a neighborhood council. For example, the Palos Verdes chose to use homeowners association. We have the community planning areas that the city planning department uses. And then there are the community boundaries for public works. Then there are, again, other communities used by the LA Times and other groups in terms of how they define their communities. So this is an ongoing challenge as well. And then finally, the dynamic rapid turnaround. These maps are evolving between the public hearings and the special meetings. As we all know, given the lateness of the delivery of the census data, you're working under a very compressed calendar. So we've worked hard to make sure people know what are the current maps you are considering. So again, this is just sort of the public. I thought as we go into this next reporting out of some information that it'd be useful to just bring up one more time where the current supervisorial districts are. And I've put here rings around the areas where we've gotten a lot of debate since I talked about conflicting points of view. If I start up here, we have input from a lot of government agencies to keep this tri-city area of Pasadena, Glendale, and Burbank together. From residents, we've gotten a little bit of a different picture of the San Fernando Valley, where they say, well, Burbank and Glendale are part of our San Fernando Valley. We've gotten a lot of input around LAX and whether or not it should be part of Supervisorial District 2 and how that then is connected with the beaches. We've heard from the South Beach cities saying, we are our unique beach cities. We're nothing like the beach cities up in Malibu. And a desire to also look at Palos Verdes, where some say the peninsula of Palos Verdes should be part of the Bay cities, the South Bay cities. And then additional comments saying it also should be considered part of San Pedro and Long Beach. And then moving up here, this was another area where we've gotten a lot of input from the San Gabriel Valley. There are at this end of the eastern side of the county, 3 supervisorial districts that come together here. And we've gotten comments from the San Gabriel Valley, please don't split us into more than 2 parts. And a lot of support for the foothills as a separate area from the other part of San Gabriel Valley. I'll also just point out here around LAX another little important observations. It too has 3 supervisorial districts that are very close to LAX. Supervisorial District 3, 2, and 4 in many ways abut LAX in one way or the other. So these are a lot of the areas of focus of discussion in the working groups. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Holly to go over, just to make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of the population numbers and the CVAP numbers that have come up in many of the public comments to date.
All right, thank you, Gayla. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. What I'm doing here, this really came at one of the suggestions from Commissioner Hyla Soto, who inquired whether we could look at some of the demographic and population shifts from 2010 to 2021 or 2020, comparing census data. And ArcBridge had done this presentation originally back in September. And so we're just going to revisit it because now as we continue to sort of grapple with the map choices, it may be helpful. And so just starting out here on this master slide of laying out the comparison of 2010 to 2020, what you can see, generally speaking, is if you look over here in this chart here that lays out the changes in total raw number population of various ethnic groups, and then comes up with a percentage difference. You can see that overall, and this is all county-wide, and I will touch on a district by district analysis in just a moment, but county-wide, you see almost 2%, 2.5% increase in the Latinx population, total population here. And then we did, or pretty rather, did include the same number, raw number and percentage differential for voting age population. So you see that the non-Hispanic whites, their total population from 2010 to 2020 dropped by just over 6%. You can see that the African American population in the county dropped countywide by 6.67%. And then you can see that the Asian community increased by 11.23%. Again, this is countywide total population. And we will, this is available on the website. And so you can pull this down and look at it as you evaluate maps if you have any questions about, what are some of the number differences. So if we take a look at District 1, and you can see it, this is the current District 1 here. You can see that there has been a decrease in the percentage of total population of the Latinx community from 72, just over 72% in 2010 to about 68.79%. Now, you could see that if you compare the 2 years that the non-Hispanic whites and the non-Hispanic African Americans are, there's a slight difference, but it's not a large difference. Basically, been fairly stable in this district. And you can see that there has been an increase in the percentage population of Asian Americans from the 14.93% in District 1 in 2010 to about 16.87. And then what's interesting is you will see consistently throughout all of these that the voting age population, both countywide and in each of the districts, has increased. So as a whole, the entire county has an older population now than they did in 2010. Down here, you can also then track the changes in CVAP populations among the various groups. So while there was a decrease in District 1 of total population of Hispanics, actually the citizens voting age population among Latinx group went from 59.84% to 61. So that was an increase in the percentage of citizens of the voting age group. Looking here at District 2, what you can see here is that, I guess I should say decade over decade, but year over year, the Hispanic or Latinx population here in District 2 was almost the same percentage-wise. It's 54.58% in 2010 and 54.87% in 2020. So although that number held percentage-wise for total population, you can see that the voting age population of that group crept up slightly. But the CVAP of that group within that district went up significantly from 32% and change to just over 41%. The white population here had increased percentage-wise slightly. The African American population dropped 3.65 percentage points from 2010 to 2020. The voting age population of the African American community there in District 2 dropped by 4 percentage points, and the CVAP dropped by over 7 percentage points. So without even changing the district, there were drops there. What this obviously indicates that African Americans have been moving out of District 2. And now where they're moving to, we don't know. It could be out of state, be other parts of the county. It could be other parts of the state, but there's a significant change there just without even changing the line. District 3, again, in terms of percentages, Total population, the Latinx community, total population was fairly steady. There was a slight drop of about 2 percentage points for the white population. African Americans increased by, a couple of tenths, maybe even less than a couple of tenths of a percentage point. And the Asian Americans went up by kind of a small amount. And then you can also now see how that trickled down to the CVAP numbers here. So the population as a whole, there weren't any huge or dramatic changes, unlike what we've seen in District 2. There were some shifts here in the CVAP nonetheless. And again, you'll see that voting age population, we're just getting older here in LA County. All right, District 4. Again, the Latinx population here was fairly stable. It went up by a couple of percentage points. There was about a 5 percentage point drop in District 4 among white total population, and African Americans decreased in District 4 by a very small amount, but there was about a 2%, not quite 2% increase of Asian Americans. And again, down here at the bottom, you can see how all of that translates into CVAP, as well as, again, the voting age population going up just overall and also individually as the county has gotten older. And finally, in District 5, here there is a 4 percentage point increase of the Latinx community in District 5 between 2010 and 2020. And there is about a 6% drop in the white population in District 5. African American population in District 5 decreased by a very small margin, very tiny, less than 1%. And the Asian American population did increase from 16.97 to 18.37, again showing the countywide trend in terms of voting age, that percentage increased as the population got older. And then you can also see the changes here to the relative CVAP percentages as a whole. So I was kind of filling in here, presenting this presentation or analysis that Preeti had done, which we then, included the CVAP portion. And with that, again, it's available on the website and for the public to see and for commissioners. And with that, I will turn it back over to Gayla, who will pick up the next piece of this.
I see a hand from Commissioner Holtzman.
Okay.
Quickly, where on the website is it? I was just looking for it. I couldn't find it.
It's on the meetings tab, but I can go ahead and put a link in the chat as well, so members of the public can have easy access as well.
It's on the meetings tab for this meeting today?
Yes, it was uploaded right before the meeting. So if you
so I have to
on the
reload.
page already, you just need to refresh it.
I have to refresh. I'm looking at what's it called? I still don't see it.
Okay. And so it's under the December 5th meeting, but I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat so all commissioners as well as members of the public can just click on that link for the PDF.
Okay, I don't see anything about the existing district. So just a comment, I don't think we really wanted to focus too much on the existing districts. My question for Holly, though, is, now that we're not supposed to consider race as a primary factor in drawing districts, but we're allowed to look at race, apparently, because your presentation included that. How about looking at political party composition of proposed districts in terms of registration? Because we have a mandate not to prefer or discriminate against a political party. And if we don't want to do that, we may need to look at data to make sure we're not packing all of one political party into one district. I think, the existing District 5, for instance, was a partisan gerrymander. because of the, the connection of North County and the San Gabriel Valley foothills. So can we see that sometime, the political party composition registration of the proposed districts?
I would, this is one where I wish Priti were here, because I can't answer that question in terms of what data sets she has access to. I don't know if Ty and Gayla know, but we can certainly ask her about that. But you are correct that in drawing the maps, we're not to discriminate or favor a political party. I don't know that there's, unlike racial issues which are implicated by the Constitution and the Voting Rights Act, the political piece is in statute, and so. But I think we can ask Priti what kind of data sets we have on that.
Yeah, thank you, because I think the districts that have come before, some of them were motivated by party distribution, and we may not want to perpetuate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Stetchen and Commissioner Franklin.
Since Priti isn't here, I'm not sure anyone can answer, but as I recall, we have to take the CMAP numbers with a grain of salt because they're not quite as accurate and they don't match calendar-wise. They represent a conglomeration of data over a 3 or 4 year period from other surveys. So I don't know if it's an exact decade to decade comparison in those numbers. So they might be somewhat different than the ones that were presented.
Right. So what, I realize I'm not sharing my screen anymore. But on this, let me just share it again real quick. So you are correct. The numbers that are here, just by way of example, in this table, the 2020 table and the 2010 table, in the upper two tables are based on census data. The numbers here in these lower tables are based, CVEP is based on the American Community Survey. So you're correct, it comes from different data, and it is a conglomeration of the last 5 ending in, I believe, 2019. So you're correct.
Commissioner Franklin.
Yes, thank you, Holly. I know that we're not supposed to consider race, okay? But looking at the data, the Latinx communities have increased significantly, and the African American communities have decreased. Something to consider, and maybe you can, or our consultant, Mr. Adelson, can advise on this once again. I'm looking at the data and then the public comments that are asking to add another seat. And I know we can't do that, but the data speaks for itself regarding the Latinx community. So how do we approach that? If you follow my questioning.
Yeah, Bruce, do you want to take that one on?
Holly, thank you, and good evening, commissioners. A couple of things to clarify here. The racial predomination issue is just that. You can't separate race and predomination. Race cannot be your number one consideration, your main consideration, your overriding consideration. But race is a part of redistricting, as we've talked about. So yes, you can consider it, but it can't drive your process. And a good example is you can't decide, you know what, let's create 4 majority-minority districts without looking at the election analysis, without looking at the context of your population. So race is a required part of redistricting. It just can't be the only part or the main part or the number one part. And as far as the charts that Holly was displaying, you know, one of the things that I find quite interesting and illuminating, you've had a lot of population growth in certain communities. Your redistricting can reflect increased population growth. And remember, that's part of your communities of interest, part of keeping communities together, part of recognizing that compact minority communities can be kept together. Again, the trick, which is something that, you know, I'm always listening for and monitoring, race can't be your number one thing. It can't be the main thing. It is one of many factors. And those factors include communities of interest. Those factors include historic communities as well as contiguity, for example. So Commissioner Franklin, it just can't be the number one. It can be one of many. It just can't be the main one or the number one factor you're looking at. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see no other commissioner hands.
Okay.
Oh, Commissioner Wong.
Yes, thank you, Bruce, for clarifying that. I think what has happened, or it seems what has happened is the, your warning not to consider, not to have race as the main or only factor, and stressing that has kind of caused some commissioners to be even afraid of considering it, along with a lot of other factors. I think we've gotten a lot of community input, and I think you've acknowledged this as well, about why some historic discrete communities of interest that happen to be a similar ethnicity or race have asked to be kept together. And there is absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, we should consider that seriously, about keeping those communities together as they are requested, because it's, they have a lot of common interests together. And so, I think that considering the population shifts that have happened in LA County is certainly a consideration. And I think that it doesn't require us to create majority minority districts, but it also doesn't prohibit that. And that actually, I guess I would ask you, obviously it could be a consideration among many others.
Commissioner Wong, that's right. And I think that at this phase in redistricting, as you move forward to final maps, everything gets more challenging, particularly since you're getting more public comments and people are really even more invested than they had been. And I don't remember if we had talked before about my driving a car analogy that I found online a few months ago. We all drive cars. When we drive, we have to do lots of things. You can't just fine tune your shuffle play on your iPod or turn your lights on, and that's the only thing you do when you're driving. You have to do everything. Same here. You cannot just decide, let's just create majority minority districts. That's raises racial predomination issues. Remember too that with nonpartisan elections in LA County, Board of Supervisor elections, there has not been sustained, consistent white bloc voting to block minorities from electing candidates of choice. So going into where you are now and just saying we're going to have 3 majority minority districts based on nothing but race would be inadvisable. However, to your point, given population growth and the communities in your county, you can choose to keep those communities whole as part of redistricting. One of the cautionary notes is that if you create districts that are 95% majority minority or 85% majority minority, that's something that I'd like to discuss and further answer questions about, because when you get that high, that also raises eyebrows about, well, is race predominating in redistricting? It may be, it may not be, but I think that one of the key points here is, yes, you can keep communities whole. That's your traditional redistricting criterion. You can do that. How you do it, where you do it is something important, is up to you. And I also want to add too that I've heard a lot of comments about pitting minority groups against each other. you have a 2/3 majority minority county. I don't know, frankly, how you can avoid putting multiple minority groups or keeping multiple minority groups in your districts. Any effort to like not do that, I think would raise also significant issues. So given that as I said, you have such a large majority minority population, it has grown. The Latinx population has grown. Asian American population has grown. Your redistricting can properly reflect that, with the caveat being, it's just not about race only. It's not about race as the number one thing. Race is one of many factors. Is that helpful?
Yes, that is, thank you.
You're welcome.
So commissioners are going to get a chance to talk. Can we, I really want to limit this to only required questions of clarification at this point. Do you have one of those, Commissioner Holtzman?
Yeah, briefly. I just want to be clear. Is looking at CVAP breakdown in a whole district different from looking at keeping contiguous communities of interest together or neighboring communities of interest together?
It is a factor, Commissioner, in redistricting, but to the point that was mentioned earlier, CVAP is not from the 2020 census. It's an extrapolation in the American Community Survey.
I just want to see, in terms of what we're supposed to consider and not consider, is the CVAP for a whole district different than whether or not we're keeping a different type of criterion in terms of race, whatever, from considering keeping historical communities of interest and neighboring communities of interest together?
Keeping traditional communities of interest together and compact minority communities together based on that issue, COIs, is a traditional redistricting criterion by itself. I'm fine with that.
But CVAP distributions, I'm just trying to see, if we look at that a lot, that could raise some suspicions of racial
conflict. Say look at that a lot. I mean, frankly, CVAP is part of redistricting. It can't be the number one thing. It can be one of many things. But it is an important part of redistricting to make sure you're not being discriminatory, cracking population or packing population.
But the other thing could be the number one thing, keeping communities together.
Communities of interest is, I think, that the Supreme Court has never said keeping communities of interest together is unconstitutional, because it's not. Okay.
So I'm just hoping that we will then frame that as our number one. Thank you.
Commissioner Soko, clarification question.
Yeah, Holly, can you remind me where our imprisoned population or our unhoused population, like, are they reflected in the districts they came from? Because I know obviously our probation camps.
Yeah, the incarcerated population is allocated to their last known place of residence. So for the colloquial term, their hometown or wherever they came from before they entered the system and then were placed wherever the state or county put them. As for the homeless population, I believe the homeless population and pretty much was probably likely the better source on this. It's where it was counted. There was an effort to count the homeless population. So if the homeless population that was able to be counted is allocated to the district it was counted in, or I shouldn't say district, but the census block it was counted in. So, kind of established encampments, you can imagine, I mean, they are allocated to where that encampment is located.
I believe perhaps the question was, is the incarcerated population distribution reflected in the numbers that you showed us, Ollie?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can we move on, please, Gayla?
Okay, and also there is a report posted on our website that shows how the census data changed with the adjustments for the incarcerated population, and we can get you that link to the report if you'd like that. But I'm going to move on. So Arkbridge had given an overview of the historical changes back in September to the districts. And it just seemed to make sense at this time, particularly to share some of the information with the public about these changes and what are some of the issues that have risen now as a result. So I've added a little bit of an anecdotal sort of story with it all. When you first look at this Arkbridge map, it's extremely confusing because they have overlaid what the district boundaries were basically for 5 decades. And what I'd like you to keep in mind as I walk you through sort of the story of how this all unfolded during the last 50 years is to keep in mind that the candy cane line is the current supersorial district line. If we start with District 1, back in 1971, for a period of 20 years, it was basically San Gabriel Valley and it went north into the mountains. And so when you hear people talking about the San Gabriel Valley, this is historically what was sort of defined as that area. Now, how did this change? In 1991, if you look at the configuration, it looks very different, does it not? And I'm going to go through the details. What happened in 1991 was when there was a federal court case and the first Latino district was created. And what it did was it moved the district to go west past East LA and to include downtown. And as you now know, to get 2 million people, they had to do some adjustments. So they moved the San Gabriel Valley foothills up to the north to Supersorial District 5. And in the southern end, you'll see here, these communities from Diamond Bar on were added to Supersorial District 4. So this was one of the major changes. Now, what happens is you go forward and there was some further modifications. The purple sort of shows some adjustments made around West Covina. You'll see Claremont was added in 2011. You'll see that the Santa Fe Springs was removed to Supersorial District 4 in 2011. And you'll see this whole area of Florence Firestone was reunited as one district because it was split between 2 supersorial districts. Now, once those changes were made, they had obviously a ripple effect to the other districts. The one district that didn't have as much impact was Supersorial District 2. If you look at it in 1971 and you look at it today, it's a little different, but not the significant difference that we saw in Supersorial District 1. What changes were made? You'll see sort of some minor changes around the perimeter up here to the northeast. You'll see this little West Carson area was added and this little area here as well. The biggest change probably was the addition of this East Rancho Dominguez area that was added, and a little bit of an area here just north of the airport. Now, I told you one of the big changes was in East LA, in San Gabriel Valley, and it added East LA and downtown. So what happened then to District 3? So if you look at District 3 back in 1971, it started at the 405 and went east and included downtown and East LA. Very different from what it is today. This is the shape of it today. This is the line of what it was. And if we look at the details, what you're going to see is the biggest shift was they added Las Virgenes. They took away downtown in East LA, and you'll see it sort of extends up further into the San Fernando Valley. So it goes up here to Sylmar, it includes these other communities, and this really includes a large chunk of the San Fernando Valley. Now, District 4, you used to have not only Las Virgenes, but had the entire beachside communities, and you had a lot of people talk about the beach communities. It had the entire Palos Verdes Peninsula, both harbors, and then it sort of stopped in this area of the county. When changes were made in 91, which were the most radical, then you begin to see what we call the U shape or the belt around the southern edge.
If you'll excuse me, I object to consideration of this history, this part of the question. this stuff was not agendized for one thing. And for another thing, I think it's a waste of our time because we're not supposed to really be necessarily respecting previous districts or previous changes. In fact, I think we're more supposed to be suspicious of them because they were, developed with partisan gerrymandering and, politician-specific gerrymandering in mind.
But that's the point of
but-
this, is to sort of show how those
Well,
changes took place.
I'm just saying that we know this, and I'm objecting to consideration of this. So,
Commissioner Altman, if you could just hold that, you may have a different view by the time we get to the end of this process.
okay, just for the record, I've noted that I used Holly's cheat sheet and found the right way to state that. So, thank you for
Commissioner Mendoza, do you have a
Mendoza,
clarification
yeah.
question?
No, exactly. I just want to say this is, I find this beneficial.
Thank you.
And it's being provided in the context of why you're getting the comments you're getting from various groups, why there's concern about lost virginness, where they might end up. Yes, Commissioner Mendoza, is your hand still up or?
No,
Okay.
I'm trying to take it down.
So when lost virginness was removed and they were looking at the San Gabriel Valley, they then extended the subsoil district for all the way out to Diamond Bar. So again, big changes in 91 by a court order, other sort of modifications around the edges. District 5 doesn't look too different, but obviously there was an impact because this area used to be part of the San Gabriel Valley. It now extends down into the Tri-Cities area and into the foothills. And again, it sort of is trying to explain why you're getting comments about Tri-Cities together, how far south into the San Fernando Valley does this go? Back in 1971, the North County actually had the western half, if you look over here, of the San Fernando Valley. The eastern half was in another jurisdiction. So you'll see this extended down here, included the Santa Monica Mountains. You had a lot of testimony about where the Santa Monica Mountains go. And again, it's showing you the extension in terms of the foothills. So why are we doing this? So the key thing, and this is really for the public, is that these subsoil districts have never been fixed in time. For 20 years, they were sort of one configuration. They were abruptly changed in 1991. Most of the changes prior to that have been made by politicians, and a lot of them the last 30 years have been around the edges. It does show when you make one dramatic change in one subsoil district, the ripple effect. But this is a great juncture for this independent commission because they really are not looking at it in terms of where do I draw the lines to get reelected. They are looking at in terms of compliance with the criteria that Bruce Edelson's been outlining, input from the community and the various COIs, demographic changes, acknowledgement of the county's diversity, and the complexity of making the change. So it's within this context that this has been shared to sort of understand why you get so many comments from the San Gabriel Valley. We don't want to be 3 subsoil districts, 2's okay, or why you get comments from the San Fernando Valley about being 1 or 2 subsoil districts, or comments about the beach communities. So again, it's just in that context that it's being shared with you today. With that, we had 2 working groups that worked really all day on Friday to look at the maps F1, B2, and G, and they've come up with some modifications to them. And I think the best way to go about this is to have Ty share the screen so he can walk the commissioners and the public through what modifications were made. Actually, Ty won't be, but the co-chair Williams will be, co-chair Maeda, and Commissioner Saida Soda. So that when we receive public comments, they can be talking about the most current maps under consideration and some of the fixes. Before I turn it over to them, I did want to sort of share the scorecard. If you look at the line, if you look at the current subsoil districts, basically keep in mind a score greater than 2 is strong in terms of compactness. With the current one, there are 2 majority minority districts, one based on CVAP. There were 25 split cities, and it didn't do very well in terms of being responsive to what you have defined as the COI input based on your 12 public hearings that we had over the summer on COIs. If we look at B2, F1, and G, basically F1 doesn't do as well on compactness. F develops three majority minority districts based on total population, but all of them have 2 based on the CVAP, and all of them have at least 2 based on the total population. What the work groups did was eliminated any split cities. The neighborhood councils I've mentioned should be looked at later, and all of them are much better in terms of being responsive to the COIs. So that's just a little bit of an overview in terms of the scorecard. And with that, why don't we start with Co-Chair Williams on modified F, and it's posted as map option 0A2, prepared by the ad hoc working group.
I think, Co-Chair Maeda, you're doing modified F?
I think, yeah, I think that's what we decided.
Yeah.
So the working group took the map F one, I guess, and did a few things based on the public comments. We certainly unsplit some communities. I think we put Silmar back into District 3. There were some changes in the boundaries between districts 1 and 5, but the overall configuration, I think, remains as F has been for the most part. And I'm sure we'll get into more specifics as we go, but that's the overview of that one.
Oops. Commissioner or Co-Chair Carolyn Williams, could you go ahead and do the B2?
You'll see that there are some, in addition to making sure we had cities and communities together, there were some major changes to do to B2. Of course, we moved Pomona, Commerce, and Irwindale to District 1. We moved Whittier, South Whittier, and East Whittier together in District 4. You'll see District 2 has, we included Weisburn in District 2 to include LAX. In addition to District 2, we did not include, my brain just went out. We were not able to include Carson, but we were able to include parts of downtown in District 2. We moved Silmar along with neighboring communities of interest to District 1. And one of the other things that we did is that we moved the peninsula cities to the harbor communities, connecting it with San Pedro. Those are some of the major changes that we made to map B1. So it has definitely evolved.
And Co-Chair Williams, if I might add, probably the most dramatic change is that this group decided, like this next map, G, to extend subsurreal District 2 out to the ocean,
To the
include
ocean, yes.
LAX.
Yes,
And I
it's-
should point out to the public on all the maps, Commerce, Montebello, and City of Industry were all moved into subsurreal District 1 because we received a lot of input requesting that.
And
So
can I
just to clarify on this map, District 2 not only reaches out to get LAX, but also encompass El Segundo and Westchester, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So that was a big change from the original.
From the original, yes. Part of it, I can say during the first iteration for this map, the working group did not have a chance to make these kinds of changes. They would focus a lot more on keeping the cities and communities of interest together. Okay.
Commissioner Stetcher, your hand is up.
Yes, I think I may have misheard, but I think you said that Silmar was moved to District 5, and that's not right. It was moved to, yes, to District 5. I think I misheard you saying District 1, but it went to District 5.
It's in subsurreal District 3 on this map.
District
No,
5.
5. It's in 5.
It's in, oh, it's in 5, sorry.
And 5, okay, yeah. Any comments from the working group regarding that map, map B?
I see Commissioner Stetcher. No, no hand?
No?
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
No comments.
Then you're showing us map G now, I believe,
Yes.
working group map G.
Yeah, thank you. So I will start in the eastern part of the county, San Gabriel Valley, and then move west, south, and north. So in the San Gabriel Valley, just to highlight some of the modifications there, we moved Temple City into District 5. We heard that Azusa wanted to be kept with the Foothill community, so we moved Azusa from District 1 into District 5. And considering sort of the service region of Mount San Antonio College, we also kept Walnut and the Cal Poly Pomona area together in District 1. And then I believe we also spent a little bit of time looking at the East Los Angeles area with Pico Rivera, Montebello, Commerce, and just what we heard resonated, which was that those are communities that are strongly connected for various reasons. And then moving a little bit further west, we did hear from the AAPI communities sort of in the central part of Los Angeles that there were some recommended modifications there that wanted to minimize the amount of split as we looked at Thai Town, Koreatown, Little Tokyo, Filipino Town, and we worked on revising parts of District 2 and District 1 to take that into consideration. And I think specific to that area, as we move forward, we really want to have a stronger understanding of sort of the Koreatown area, looking at including east of Wilton, south of Beverly, and again, as we look at future map iterations. And as we move into District 2, we spent some time looking at the Cal State Dominguez Hills, Carson as well, since we heard that those are communities of interest that are aligned with other communities of district in District 2. So we moved those from District 4 into District 2. And then as we move into, so of course, again, changes to District 2 also had implications for District 4. And so let me stay there for a little bit. We also made a connection now between the Palos Verdes Peninsula in the San Pedro area or the harbor community. So now you'll see the change there from District 2 to District 4. And then as we move into the San Fernando Valley, again, we heard that Sylmar has strong ties to the Pacoima, San Fernando, Lakeview Terrace, North Hills. So we moved Sylmar into District 2 from District 5, keeping—
I believe you mean District 3. Move
apologies,
into
yes.
District 3.
Yes, apologies. Yes, Sylmar from 5 into 3. And they kept Lakeview Terrace in District 5. And I think, yeah, those were some of the more notable modifications, or at least the more larger populations from one district to another. To my fellow working group, any other changes that I may have left out that are important to note? Thank you.
Is there more in the staff report then?
No, that concludes the staff report. And unless there are any other questions of clarification for the ad hoc working groups, otherwise you can move to public comments.
Okay, let's move to public comment. As I mentioned, since this is really intended to be a work session for the commission, We'll take a maximum of 30 minutes of public comment. Perhaps I suggest we take the first 10 in the Q&A, then move to the telephone recipients or telephone callers who have their hands up. If there's time left, go back to the Q&A. Whereas at the public hearing on Tuesday, we'll start with the telephone folks. So let's go that way.
Can I
Fine.
just,
Oh, yes.
Co-Chair Maeda, can I just remind the commissioners we were only, if we have any questions at all for public, those who are making public comments, that it would be clarifying questions. We want to limit that to clarifying questions only.
And we can probably then anticipate taking a break after the public comments. That'll be at about your 1 hour, 45 minute.
That'll be perfect.
Okay, so starting with public comments. So just as a reminder for members of the public, we do have interpretation services today. So if possible, try to speak a little bit slower so our interpreters are able to keep up. With that, we're going to start off with Nora Garcia, then Chris Rowe. Nora, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Nora Garcia. I'm a city council member for the city of Pomona, and I am calling to thank the commissioners not only for their service, but to listening to the voice of my constituents and keeping Pomona in District 1. In a census process that disenfranchised, scared, and alarmed many of the working class immigrant community in my city, the census in some parts was one of the lowest in LA County. So I believe that by keeping us in District 1 with communities of interest, we are further empowering our voices and making sure that our community is properly represented. I want to encourage you all to please consider the changes that you've made today. They're great to us because we are able to stay within our community of interest. Please keep them on in District 1. Thank you so much. And this is so short.
Right, thank you so much. Next, we have Chris Rowe, then Lena Mura. Chris, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you for all your work on your ad hoc committees. I've looked at the map hub. I again support map 78, which I believe the modified F group was going to look at, I believe. I'm disappointed that you did not keep the San Fernando Valley Hole, but I want to thank Commissioner Holtzman, who actually did draw a map that reflected 78 and a modified, I believe that's called modified F, and that's map 86. I want you to know that I called several city council members' offices. Paul Krikorian, as you know, spoke eloquently about keeping the San Fernando Valley Hole as a COI. And I believe one other council member submitted a letter. I can state that for a fact, but I did not see it in the map hub. So I'm hoping that person is speaking today, or a member of his staff will speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we're going to move on to Lena Mura, then Mayor Tim Sandoval. Lena, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you have 1 minute.
Hi, good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for all your work. My name is Lena Mira, and I live and work in the city of Pomona, and I'm actually actively involved in the community. I support map 81 with some modifications because it keeps Pomona in District 1, and also map 82 because it keeps Pomona in District 1. Most importantly, anything that keeps Pomona in District 1 is important. We have taken a long time to build these relationships, and I believe these communities, the current map represents the middle income and working class communities. I appreciate the representation that we currently have in the report we have built and the connections that we have built within District 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Next, we have Mayor Tim Sandoval, then Jessica Panduro. Mayor Tim Sandoval, you'll be able to unmute yourself momentarily, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Sandoval, Mayor of the City of Pomona. I want to thank the commissioners for your months of hard work. Like I have at previous meetings, I ask that you please keep Pomona in Supervisorial District 1, and it looks like you're headed in that direction. Thank you. As the largest city in the San Gabriel Valley with the highest percentage of the Latinx community of the top 10 largest cities in the county, Supervisorial District 1 connects us historically to similar working class communities along the 10, 60, and 605 freeways. It includes El Monte, South El Monte, Montebello, and Baldwin Park. Please keep us in SD1. And thank you again for your service.
Thank you. Next, we have Jessica Panduro, then Mayor Bill Brand. Jessica, momentarily, you'll be able to unmute yourself. And once you begin speaking, you have 1 minute.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I want to express the need to create districts that uplift communities. Map G and B2 are hurtful to communities of color. I also want to uplift the importance of community input. Community-based organizations are making sure to keep community involved in this lengthy and very hard to understand process. People have to join public comments, have joined meetings to receive updates after every meeting to understand this process and what is happening. Our voices have been silenced for way too long, and we are here telling you about our communities and the importance to keep us whole so we can continue this fight for the right to live and create healthy communities. I deserve, and our communities deserve that. Listen to our voices and not to someone who has no idea of our everyday life and what we do here. Thanks for those who have uplifted community voices, and I plead you to please vote against Map G and B2 that are not helpful for communities, but yet again, very harmful.
Thank you, Jessica. Next, we have Mayor Bill Brand and Roy Humphreys. Mayor Bill Brand, momentarily, you'll be able to unmute yourself. And once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, commissioners, for all your hard work. I'm Bill Brand, Mayor of Redondo Beach. Been elected official here for 12 years, over 12 years, seen a lot of different supervisors, and appreciate your work. I was really I'm a big fan of Map B2. I think it keeps the changes to a minimum, keeps the communities together. The modified version is an improvement from just simple B2. I think F, it almost has double the standard deviation of any of the other maps. And it's just crazy. They include the San Fernando Valley down with the South Bay. That to me, that just makes no sense at all. G is much better than F. I don't even know why F is under consideration, frankly. Although in G, you've got District 2, major changes in District 2. So I would focus on keeping the communities together, minimizing the changes. I hadn't heard a lot of complaints about the districts over the years, and I'm a big fan of B2. So thank you, Co-Chair Williams. I thought that was a great job and a great mod. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Roy Humphreys, then Jackie Contreras. Roy, momentarily, you'll be able to unmute yourself. And once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. This is Roy Humphreys, Roland Heights here. And I want to tell you what an absolute pleasure it is to behold the positive engagement of the constituents as your committee has done. Especially, I'm going through PTSD from being a principal of bringing the voting rights to Roland Unified, which is a contentious obstruction. And Hacienda La Puente was a historical argument of epic proportions. And again, on map B2 is the only way to fly. So thank you very much. And I hope to see you in 10 years for another go around. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Next, we have Jackie Contreras, then Lee Caller. Jackie, momentarily, you'll be able to unmute yourself. And once you begin speaking, you have 1 minute.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jackie from Community Coalition and People's Bloc. It's been very disheartening seeing the Commission continuing to support MAP G and B2, even though it will affect our communities in a big way. As you've been advised, race should not be the predominant factor when selecting maps, but that you are allowed to look at it as we have, and we can see the negative impacts that these maps have. B2 continues to reduce the representation of communities of color at the county level, even though they make up the majority of LA County. Map G dilutes the voices of our Black community by pairing them with the coast, and as seen with the equity index indicators that were submitted, they are vastly different communities. The drop in Latinx CVAP in the working group's modified F1 is concerning as they barely reach over 50% for both D1 and D4. Please consider map 81 that has been submitted that raises the CVAP and keeps Walnut with other AAPI communities, which has been identified by groups in the Valley that we have worked with at the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Next, we have Lee Collar, then Carlos Leon. Lee, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Thank you, commissioners. My name is Lee Collar. I'm a resident of Redondo Beach and am calling to speak in favor of map B2. The problems with the other maps are primarily map F1, which dumps the South Bay in with San Fernando Valley. Makes no sense. We really don't have much in common in terms of interest with the beach cities, with our harbor here, and the harbors down in the San Pedro and Long Beach area have a common interest in line. Map G is better, but map B2 keeps us in District 4 with Supervisor Janice Hahn, who has been a big help to us. And we really appreciate the work that she does and how she understands our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Next, we have Carlos Leon. Then we'll be moving to those who called in. So after Carlos Leon, it will be a number ending in 1983. Carlos, momentarily, you'll be able to unmute yourself. And once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Carlos Leon, opposing map B and map G in support of map F. I live and have grown up in District 2 my whole life. Thank you for the work that you're all doing. I hope you really take racial equity and racial justice into account. I am part of the community coalition founded in 1992 during the civil unrest of 92 in a time of extreme racism for our communities, a social justice organization in LA who has uplifted voices of communities of color most impacted for over 30 years. As an organizer in the community for 10 years plus, I have heard and continue to hear many stories of Black and brown residents, especially throughout LA. A lot of these stories are of the pain and results of decades of racist policies and disinvestment that have impacted their quality of life. Our community is currently being displaced through gentrification. It has been the hardest hit by the pandemic. Please do what's right. I know it's difficult to really understand. All of you have asked for more diverse voices. You all heard the voices. You're going to be part of Black erasure if map G is selected.
Thank you, Carlos. Next, we have caller with phone number ending in 1983, then caller with phone number ending in 7856. So caller ending in 1983, you'll be able to unmute yourself by pressing *6. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Yes, Stuart Waldman from VICA. At the last meeting, I was super excited. Everyone was talking about map 78, but looking at the working groups, it doesn't appear that anyone looked at map 78 in any detail. Map 78 can be adjusted, taking Pomona out. We like map 78. It takes care of the valley. None of the other maps do. B went from a good map to now modified B2 as a bad map. Only 53% of valley voters in one district. That's bad. F is weird, going from Sylmar to Redondo Beach. We do not like modified F1. And so modified G is something that we started to look at. I submitted a map. It's 087, made some adjustments there. It doesn't put the whole valley into one district, but I think it's better, and I hope you would all take a look at it. We're so far from being done here, but we hope that you will look at 78 and 87 and take care of the San Fernando Valley.
Thank you, Stuart. Next, we have caller with phone number ending in 7856, then caller with number ending in 3270. So caller ending in 7856, you'll be able to unmute by pressing *6. Once you begin speaking, you have 1 minute.
This is Jacqueline DuPont Walker, a residential stakeholder in Lafayette Square and professional stakeholder in Central and South LA. thank you for the work. And today, Bruce and Holly, in going over maps in the B series, F series, and the G series, to get to the point, the F series still remains the one that I certainly would urge you on behalf of our community to consider. While compactness, contiguity, and equal population are extremely important, I urge you to not overlook the need to look at preservation of existing political communities and COIs, as well as racial fairness. It is so important when you look at map F, compare it especially to the B series. We know that any one map making a change of any significance impacts the other, but it is very important for the African American community to remain with a voice at the table. That would be fairness. And it is also very important for us to take a look at how allocation of resources in communities that have been traditionally underserved can be served with MAP F series.
Thank you,
Political
Jacqueline.
representation is important.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you so very
Time
much.
is up. Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to caller with phone number ending in 78. I'm sorry. With caller ending in 3270. Then we're going to move on to Steve Ferguson. So caller ending in 3270, you'll be able to unmute yourself by pressing *6. Once you begin speaking, you have 1 minute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is August Fung, and I am calling. I'm a resident of South Pasadena. I'm chair of the San Gabriel Valley Redistricting for Asians. I am opposed to any of the maps that don't keep the West San Gabriel Valley Asian community united. Map 78 does that. It includes Alhambra, Monterey Park, San Gabriel, Rosemead, and it puts it in an Asian district for District 5 to create an Asian coalition district. We should look at Map 78. It combines Diamond Bar, the West San Gabriel Valley, the East San Gabriel Valley into an Asian district. As you saw, Asians are the fastest growing population. They're double the size of African Americans, and this commission has failed the Asian community, but not by not giving them a district. Also, Map 78 deals with the San Gabriel Valley and finally puts them together with Glendale and Burbank. I'm in South Pasadena. We have no ties with Glendale and Burbank. They should be with the San Fernando Valley. And they should have their own district. We shouldn't have Glendale and Burbank in the 5th. We should have Monterey Park, San Gabriel, Rosemead, and into Diamond Bar.
Thank you, August. Next, we're going to move on to Steve Ferguson, then Maria Brenes. Steve, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, my name is Steve Ferguson. I am a member of the Burbank Board of Education, a lovely community that you all are wrestling with right now. And so first, I want to thank you all for your service, but also lend my voice and join with Paul Krikorian and other Valley leaders in really asking you to consider Map 78. While I love our city council partners and our mayors and city council members are all play a role, we in education also play a very significant role, and especially during this pandemic, I think we all can acknowledge we've been doing a big role. But we are organized by the LA County Office of Education, and so supervisorial districts really do matter, especially when committees appoint and create charter schools, et cetera. So again, we ask that we're tied in with our LA community. We are part of the LA Community College District in Burbank, and our nearest community college is LA Valley College. We ask that we be drawn into the San Fernando Valley. Speaking as an individual board member, I believe we should be tied in with the rest of the Valley, not with Pasadena. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we have Maria Brenes, then phone number ending in 8575. Maria, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for all your work the last few days. Thank you, Gayla, for your presentation today. As you continue to make modifications, please take into account the increased Latinx CVAP for SD1. As shared, Latinx CVAP, as it stands now, is at 61% plus based on the census data. People of color have had to work very hard for decades for a seat at the table, particularly at the County Board of Supervisors. I urge the commission to maintain as well an effective Latinx for CVAP for SD1 at least 53% in order to allow us to elect a candidate of choice. Maintaining an effective Black CVAP for SD2 is also critical. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. Next, we have caller with a phone number ending in 8575, then Beatrice Sotero. So caller ending in 8575. To unmute, press *6. Once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Carl. I'm calling from Panorama City. I'm a former vice president of the Panorama City Neighborhood Council. I would like to speak on behalf of the minority communities and the immigrant communities in the San Fernando Valley, and we're asking to be united. For the first time, we would like to have representation from the San Fernando Valley. We represent 2 million people, and map 78 does exactly what Maria was saying earlier, where it keeps the CVAP numbers higher for District 4 and District 1, creates a Black opportunity district in District 2, creates an Asian opportunity district, and something that we haven't had in the county either, in District 5, and not overlapping the Asian with the Latino and creating conflicts there. And it also unites the San Fernando Valley into one district. Please, it's not a perfect map, but you can make it better by just looking at it and working off of that map. Thank you, Commissioners, for your time and your commitment to our county.
Thank you, Carl. So next we have Beatrice Sotero, then Carl Torosian. So Beatrice, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Beatriz Soltero, soy residente del este de Los Ángeles. Quiero expresar la importancia de asegurar la representación en nuestras comunidades. Las nuevas ediciones al mapa F1 reduce el voto latino en nuestras comunidades. Es importante que nos unamos para fortalecernos y así pelear por el derecho de una vida mejor para nuestras comunidades, ya que ya es bastante difícil y necesitamos distritos que apoyen al pueblo a seguir luchando por el derecho a existir. Este es un proceso que puede ser muy dañino para nosotros si no toman en cuenta nuestras voces alrededor de nuestras comunidades, las cuales vivimos, trabajamos o estudiamos aquí. Gracias por su tiempo. Bendiciones.
Thank you, Beatrice. Next, we have Carl Torosian, then Taylor Lee. Carl, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute. Carl, if you can hear me, you will need to unmute. Okay, so looks like Carl has dropped out of Zoom. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to Taylor Lee, then Ruby Rivera. Taylor, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Taylor Lee. I calling in to discuss the Asian community. I am also very concerned about the Asian community. For me, I live in Arcadia. I have family in Alhambra, Monterey Park, and we're split. The Asian community is split in this map. Why does this commission continue to split the Asian community in the San Gabriel Valley? Alhambra, Monterey Park. Do not put us in SD1, where we have to compete with Latinos. Put us in our own district, where we could be unified with the Pasadena population like we are in the congressional districts. This will give our community a voice it's so much needs, because we constantly have been ignored at the county level. We've never elected a countywide elected official that's Asian American. This could potentially give us the chance to do so. So please support map 78. It does that. It creates an Asian influence seat, and it unites the West San Gabriel Valley communities with the East San Gabriel Valley communities.
Thank you, Taylor. Next, we have Ruby Rivera, then John Mendoza. Ruby, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute to make your public comment.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Ruby Rivera. I am a lifelong resident of Linwood and have served the East LA community for over 10 years. I am calling in to urge the Commission to reject maps B and G. Both B and G are harmful to those communities the Voting Rights Act and the process of redistricting were meant to support. These maps split Asian American communities of interest into 3 different supervisorial districts and dilutes power in the 2nd district. Map B packs the Black community in South LA and the Latinx community in Southeast LA into 1 district, which reduces the ability to have more representation at the county level. It makes absolutely no sense to adopt a map that would create 3 white majority CBAP communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby. Next, we have John Mendoza. Then we have Arsene Adrin using Carl Torosian's ID. So John, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Yes, John Mendoza. I live in North Pomona, 4 blocks from the Los Angeles County Fair in the historic district of Ganesha Park, and I support map P. The problem with some of the other maps, F and G so far, is that what they do to the cities of Diamond Bar, Hacienda Heights, Roland Heights, and similar areas where those areas share a community of interest, same water district, same schools, and so forth, and it forces it into a different area. Too many community members are still focusing on their current supervisors, where this is supposed to be fundamental changes to the supervisory district. And I believe that map B is the only one that does make any fundamental changes, and the other maps are quite similar. So please support map B or consider it further. Also, the fairplexes have become a community of interest, which all supervisors need to be more involved in. It's been dominated mostly by 1 supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, we have Arsene Andrin using Carl Torosian's Zoom ID. So Arsene, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you have 1 minute.
As a Burbank Public Librarian, our community is tied to the San Fernando Valley and Glendale, but not Pasadena. Please keep map 78, keep the valley in 1 district. I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Oscar Alvarez, then Judy St. John. Oscar, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Oscar Alvarez, and I'm a resident in the unincorporated community of Westmont. I'm calling to urge the commission to oppose both map B and G. As many of people have been speaking, both of those maps really contradict what we're trying to go for, which is map F, because it does not dilute the voices of the Black community, that is undergoing through a lot of displacement and erasure in the LA County. And map F also keeps the historic East Side communities together and does not break apart the API communities, who both we stand in solidarity with. And so thank you for your time, and really hope you do move forward with the consideration of map F. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Next, we have Judy St. John, then Jose Cornejo. Judy, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you'll have 1 minute. Judy, are you with us? Okay. So Judy, I see that you unmuted yourself, but we are not able to hear you. Judy? So co-chairs, it looks like Judy may have some audio issues. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next speaker. But Judy, if you come back on, let us know. So next we have Jose Cornejo. Jose, momentarily you'll be able to unmute yourself, and once you begin speaking, you will have 1 minute.
Hello?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for your work and that you've done on these maps. I know it's hard work. I served as a commissioner 10 years ago for LA City, and I know the challenges you have
in splitting communities and doing all that type of work. I know it's very challenging. I'm calling you today because I really feel that the San Fernando Valley needs to be kept together. The San Fernando Valley has a population base of about 1.7 to 1.8 million people and can sustain its own supervisor seat, but it has never been given a chance to do that. It has never had a representative on the County Board of Supervisors that has been from the Valley. It's time to give the Valley that chance. It's time to give the Valley that opportunity. 20 years ago, the Valley wanted to secede from the city because it always feels like it's being left out. It's time to give them an opportunity to place their own people together. Lastly, I'll share with you that there was a survey done in August that Valley residents said they wanted to be kept in one seat by 78.
Time is up.
Thank you very much.
Okay. With that, I see no other hands or in the Q&A. Co-chairs, would you like to close public comments?
Yes, let's close public comment and go ahead and take our 10-minute break. When we return, commissioners will have a chance to talk about what they like and don't like about the various map options. We're going to go round robin. If you could try to limit your remarks to 2 or 3 minutes, I'd appreciate it. But we are at the point where we need to really begin grappling with these maps, perhaps even narrowing them down. But we'll come back in 10 minutes to discuss. Thank you.
So we are at the 10-minute mark for the break.
About time,
You're muted, yeah.
if we can all come back. Okay. Should we put a clock on this, do you think? I think we'll go, we're going to try to go one round robin, then see where we are. So let's see if we can avoid the clock, but if we can try to keep our comments focused, that would be great. Ty, who starts off for us?
I believe Commissioner Morales.
Hello, folks. So just, I was taking into consideration some of the comments that were made. I'm trying to figure out this Asian American or AAPI district, and I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly what that essentially translates into and means. Because I'm looking at the maps, at least for even B2 and G and F, I think they're somewhere around the 26% line. And if I'm looking at map 78, it's a little bit less than that. So yeah, I'm just, I need to maybe take a little more deeper dive into what folks are saying in terms of that statement. When I look at map B2, I see that we've taken out Hawthorne and Lawndale from District 2, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's just trying to figure out, I'm not sure that's, well, I would not do that, but I understand the limitations in terms of how far folks wanted us to go towards, the beach area. So that is the kind of the conflicting views that we've had. So I'm more inclined right now in terms of the map options that we have around F1 and G at this point in time, but those are just some of the general comments that I have around these maps.
I'm sorry, did you say that are you talking about B2 and District 2 as far as Hawthorne and Lawndale?
Yeah, it looks like if
I think those are in District 2.
Option B2 as relay review. So I'm looking at it. So if that's the case, it looks like the map goes a little bit inward. Maybe the city lines aren't clear there, but if that's the case, then.
So Commissioner Morales, I believe Co-Chair Maeda may be referring to the modified option, OP084.
Yes. Okay, all right. I was looking at the wrong map then. Okay, so no further comment. Let me take a look at that and then we'll go back around again if we need to.
Co-Chair Maeda and Co-Chair Williams, is it possible that we could have maybe Ty put up the maps? Because I think it would help people to know. And Ty, you should have the ability, I'm going to make sure you have the ability to do multiple screens. But I don't see that option here with the webinar format.
Yes, I'm more than happy to put them on. Just give me a moment to prepare those.
I think it'll help the commissioners and the public. And that way, when there's a comment about where's Hawthorne or wherever, we can look at the map.
I agree. Certainly, if we were in person, we'd be holding up giant maps. It's much more cumbersome this way, but we should try it.
Okay, just give me about 30 seconds. And would you like me to open just the modified option or the B2 F and G, or the modified B2 F and G?
I think we should focus on the modified versions that the working groups came up with.
Yeah, it would be helpful to see map B2 modified, because I'm opening up the what's been posted, and maybe I did not refresh, but it looks like Hawthorne and Lawndale are still not in there. So if I can just get confirmation on that, would be super helpful.
Yeah, I think open it up and we'll see. They should be.
So look, yep. So go. I have them all open now. So this is OP083, which is a modified option of B2 from the ad hoc working group.
Right.
So if you would like me to zoom in.
All right. Yes. Okay. Got it. Yeah, that was my question around that. But thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Moving on, Commissioner Obregon.
What map version is this now that I'm looking at? I'm sorry.
This is OP083, which is a modified of option B2.
Modified B2. Okay. And then the map G. Can we take a peek at that?
Of course. So this is OP084, which is a modified version of option G.
This is modified version of G. Okay. I'm leaning on this one. I see it as the most concise and compact. It does take into account communities of interest. It creates divisions down there in South LA, east of the 110 freeway, but its compactness and respect for communities of interest, I think, is of the choices that I've seen, I think I'm leaning this way. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
And I believe Commissioner Orpanel Segura is still not here. So, and Commissioner Haile Soto is excused. We're going to move on to Commissioner Saida Soto.
Thank you. I think in listening to today's public comment, I want to take another look at the San Gabriel Valley. I know we have heard both that they don't want to be split into more than 2 districts, and today we heard they want to be full. I'd like to understand that a little bit better. I do think we have made important modifications to map F to that, as well as map G, again, as it pertains to the San Gabriel Valley. I believe map F also addresses in the San Fernando Valley, keeping certain communities of interest, Silmar, Pacoima, etc., together. And so I think at this point, I'm looking at pieces of the different maps that we're considering to try and really synthesize what modifications. I don't currently consider any map to be sort of best, but I do agree that the impact of map B to communities of interest and historic communities in District 2 is something to consider addressing. And I think it does have negative consequences for those communities of interest.
Commissioner Stetcher.
Thank you. I think one thing we should definitely do today is to adopt modified map F, B2, F1, and G in place of the other ones, so that we elevate them to the ones we're considering. I'd also boldly think maybe tonight we could remove one of them, so we only had 2 left. And as for what concerns me, how I am thinking about these, I still am struggling most with districts 2 and 3. And with District 2, I'm uncomfortable with the comment that we are somehow disenfranchising the traditional African-American neighborhoods by putting them in a district that has a majority where 50% of the, how do I say this? With a higher white population than a Hispanic population, but we're not somehow disenfranchising them or having a negative effect on their ability to elect candidates of choice by putting them in a district that has, in which they're a minority, but the largest group is Hispanic and the second largest group is white. That seems to me to be the difference between B and G, and I'm not convinced about its political ramifications. And I really would like to try to get the San Fernando Valley, a larger chunk of it together, but I don't know how. We tried a number of times and so far have not succeeded within these frameworks that we're looking at. So that's what's on my mind at the moment.
Commissioner Bento?
Yes, can you guys all hear me okay?
Yes.
Is my audio good? Yes, okay, very good. I actually do have a question for Commissioner Stetcher. Which maps were you interested in actually elevating? I agree with you on this. I was just curious which ones.
The ones that the working groups worked on. So it's modified B2, modified F1, and modified G. I guess those are numbers 70. What are the numbers, Ty, so I get them right?
82, 83, and 84.
Thank you.
Yes, I actually agree with that. Recommendation is to move forward with those 3 maps. I'm still not set on a specific map, but I would like to narrow our choices down, and I would be in favor of eliminating a map. And I do see just different pieces of the maps trying to figure out how we can meet the needs of these communities of interest and make this decision. So thank you.
Co-Chair Williams?
Okay, thank you. I got a chance to work on all 3 maps in the last session. I was in the work group with, I sat in on B, originally in the work group that looked at F and G. I like the direction that modified B is headed toward, where the types of considerations for District 2. I think there's still work to be done. If you look at modified B in terms of District 2, I do have some concerns too with the San Fernando Valley. I think we're moving in the right direction, but there may be still some tweaking there. So somehow I think map F and somewhere B and G seems like they should come together in some way. Is there ways to look at them? I like in terms of, I think it's G that moved the peninsula, the Palos Verdes Peninsula into the harbor community with San Pedro. So I like some of the direction there. So somewhere I like elevating Fs and finding a way to, I won't say marry, but maybe there's a way to look at modified B and G so that the direction is more consistent and they are, I'm calling it a marriage, but somehow we can look at those 2 and see what direction they're headed in. Is there a way to combine them for the best of the 2? So those are my comments.
Could you do what you did during the committee meeting and put them side by side by overlaying one, or is that too complex in this forum?
Would you like them side by side or overlaid?
Side by side.
Okay, and which 2 maps?
B and G were the ones you were talking about, right, Commissioner?
Yeah, B and G. Part of it in terms of how they're looking at District 2. There are tweaks for District 2 that I think that need to be considered when you look at modified B. So they're different, but I also want to hear what people are saying in terms of diluting voices, but I think if the CVAP numbers are things that we were looking at, so I think, yeah.
Which is which?
So it'll be B on the left-hand side, or B modified B2 on the left hand, and then G on the right. Okay. Shall we move on to next commissioner? Commissioner Wong.
Yes, thank you, Terry. There's a lot of maps to look at and a lot of versions. I tried to look at all 87 maps or whatever. I actually I guess I would still feel most comfortable with maps F1, and actually map 81, which is a modification of F1, kind of took a lot of the other public comments that we heard last week and tried to incorporate those. So I think we should consider that. So I guess if we consider the series of F1, that would include map 81. And actually, when I was looking at map G or modifications of the map G, not only what the ad hoc committee did, which I was very glad they did, but also I was looking more closely at map 78, which does include more of San Fernando Valley. And actually that really is something I would recommend that we look at. I think it still needs some modifications, both the F1 and G, because I think there is some way to keep some of the historic discrete Asian communities of interest together. So right now, I think Koreatown and Little Bangladesh is in SD1. In SD2, and then Little Tokyo Chinatown, Historic Filipino Town, and Thai Town are in SD1. But I think just a little movement over east, we would be able to include those. And I know then that would cause some problems with SD2, but maybe including some areas in SD1, maybe Watson, east of Florence or Firestone. Anyway, would balance out the population. Anyway, I prefer F1 and G. I guess I have a slight preference if F1 over G, just because I still think that there there's too much connection with too many beach communities in SD2. So I'd like to see, so that's why I have a preference for F1. And then in terms of B2, I still have trouble with B2. I like the idea, I like the modification that they did keep all the historic Asian communities of interest together in SD1, but I still have a problem with the high minority populations that they put in SD1 and 2. I think in SD1, it's like over 84%, in SD2, it's over 87%. So I'm a little wary of that. And so that's why I have a preference of F1 and the versions of G and even map 78 over the B2 versions. So that's where I'm leaning.
Commissioner Franklin.
Yes. I'm concerned about San Fernando Valley and having San Fernando Valley whole. I hope we can modify the maps in order to do that. And the Asian community. Now, we've heard some comments between looking at map 78, okay? Map 78 would keep the San Fernando Valley whole, and the Asian community would be whole as well in map 78. However, I'm leaning towards map B2 and map G. So my preference is map B2 and map G. And I know we're at the end of our line, but if we eliminate one map, can we then add or look at map 78? So I hope I'm not being confusing. I'm leaning toward, my preference is B2 and G, but we need to consider map 78 and eliminate one of the maps, F, B, or G. I hope I'm making sense. I'm sure I am. Thank you.
Commissioner Holtzman?
All right, let's just start with a couple of general comments. First of all, if we get a comment that says that we should be in the same district because we've always been in the same district, I would consider that as a comment we should give very little, if any, weight. I don't think we need a presentation to show us the history of that, to understand where they're coming from. But actually that presentation might have shown us some past practices to avoid. Just let's think about it that way. You know, the comment, oh, we've always been in the same district. That's why we should stay in the same district. That only offers a weak basis, if any basis, you know, at best for mapping communities or jurisdictions together. And you know, that type of basis, you know, is based on maps, you know, the historical maps that the state legislature found suspicious. And we should too. The state legislature imposed the independent process on the county because there were, whatever, I don't know what they found exactly, but we wouldn't be here if the state legislature found the previous districting plans from the county to be acceptable. So there's that. Now me, I am, as like Stuart Waldman has mentioned, the only commissioner to live in the San Fernando Valley. And, you know, I don't think I'd be happy. I live in Burbank, and I don't think I'd be happy with any plan that doesn't have Burbank with the rest of the San Fernando Valley to the west. And I just wanted to say that, but if you look at maps 85 and 86, which I submitted a couple days ago, you'll see that they incorporate changes to their predecessor maps, one of which is this 78 that everybody's been talking about, that are very similar to changes that the working groups recently made to other maps. So I encourage everybody to look at 85 and 86. Don't like 87 because Burbank's not in the Valley District with that. Sorry, Mr. Walton, but that's the story there. What else? I am still concerned. Finally, I do think we, like Commissioner Franklin or someone said, we do need to inject a new framework into the agendas where we're highlighting stuff that we particularly want input to. And I think that could come from maps 78 and 86, I think, or 85. Actually, my map 85, don't miss that either. That's got a great Valley District. And it still responds to one of my main concerns, last thing I'll say, which is that I'm still concerned with the eastern connection to North County, because I think that's the legacy of a political gerrymander. And I am very wary of maintaining that eastern connection. Thank you.
Commissioner Kenny?
Yes, I'd just like to respond to Commissioner Obregon and point out that on the latest map scorecard that we were given, the modified map B2 and the modified map G both score high in compactness and equally high, and the modified map F does not. I also have a question, because I thought that the working group for map G and F1 were going to consider map 78. And I would appreciate it if someone from that working group could respond to some of the comments that we heard today that map 78 was not considered. So, so that's my first, those are my, also, I would also support moving forward with 2 maps instead of 1 map, and also designating 82, 83, and 84 as modified B, F, and G maps. Personally, I was very disappointed that map G moved the Palos Verdes Peninsula away from Torrance. And I just feel that that it really belongs with Torrance. It's the same community. And so you're kind of picking between putting it with Torrance or putting it with the ports. If you look at the former G. I don't like map F1 because it includes the coastal areas with the San Fernando Valley, the South Bay areas, and I don't think that works very well. So I do favor map B, and I would favor moving forward with map G if we wanted to move forward with a second map. Thank you.
Co-Chair Maeda.
Thank you. I found the presentations, staff presentations, to be really enlightening. So I agree with Commissioner Holtzman, of all things, regarding the value of showing historically what these districts have been like, because I think it does reveal to some extent why people are making the comments that they've been making. But it also shows just there's no reason why we need to be fixed to these current maps. And in fact, I think I'm very encouraged by the idea that all of us, I think, are wanting to do something different than what the current maps have for various reasons. And I'm really excited that we have 3 maps set, all 3 of which we're considering map options that are much better in terms of the COI analysis, as well as being reasonably compact. Well, 2 of the 3. I found Holly's presentation of the percentage population shifts since the last census to be also enlightening. The fact that the Latino population has gone up more than 11% in the past 10 years. And the Asian American population has gone up nearly 15%, is very, very significant, as well as the fact that the African American population has decreased by about 1.22% overall. But then when you look at the districts, the African American population has actually increased slightly in terms of the CVAP, at least, in every district except for the District 2, where it has decreased by 7.5%. That's a really, really large decrease. And that to me means even if we are intent on trying to protect or keep together historic African-American communities in the south and central part of Los Angeles, in other words, even if we were to adopt the current map, which I don't think we're going to do, but even if we were to do that, it would still result in a tremendous drop in Black voting strength, if you will, in that district. So it's inevitably going to fall. And the question is, what do we do with that district? Where does it go? But I think that's something that is, something we should think about. Now, I'm not saying race is driving the process. It's clearly not driving it. It's not the only or the predominant consideration, but it must, not only can, but it must be considered in light of these population shifts. These numbers do affect the way we're going to be drawing maps. And I think and we need to grapple with that. As to the comment that Asians deserve to have their own district, we're not drawing 15 districts. We're only drawing 5. There simply isn't the Asian population numbers or where they're living to allow us to draw an Asian district. Now, it may be possible. We certainly want to keep historically discrete Asian communities together. And I think our maps do that to a great degree. There's always going to be tinkering that we've been doing with the districts so that we can try to do that as much as possible. But it's, it's not possible to draw an Asian district for only drawing 5 districts in this situation. And, that's let alone whether or not we can actually do that in terms of voting rights analysis, voting polarization analysis. A couple of other comments. Map option F1, I know has drawn a lot of support. It was one that I think a lot of commissioners were very interested in at the outset. But I'm disappointed, I have to say, that the People's Bloc groups really have not grappled with the fact that although their map has a lot of support with regards to certain things, the revision of it in 81, I disagree with Commissioner Wong. I don't think it really reflects the kinds of concerns that other communities have had. And I remain concerned about the finger of the coast that adjoins the San Fernando Valley. I literally cannot recall a single person saying, we in the coast want to belong to a district that includes the San Fernando Valley, or vice versa. Folks in the San Fernando Valley saying they want to be in the same district as a finger down the coast. I think that's an issue. That doesn't mean we can't do that, but it's difficult to justify having the community of interest aligned that way when we haven't heard any testimony that suggests that that's what we should be doing. I think option G and option B one are, as modified, are beginning to look somewhat similar to each other. I like the way that option G includes the SD1 essentially as configured by originally configured by the People's Bloc maps. And I like the fact that it's been drawing lots of interest in other map jars, 67, 78, which we've heard a lot about, 79, 86, 87, are all versions of this basic concept. And as you can see by the side-by-side, there's a lot of commonalities right now between B2 as modified and G as modified. So I'm hopeful that G might become sort of the base map to try to consolidate some of these ideas and try to make the valley as whole as possible. Just quickly, somebody again was saying, keep the valley whole. We want our own district. You don't have 2 million people, so you can't have the valley be its own district. You need somewhere else. So where do you get that from? You either can go south on the coast into Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, or something else. Plus you have the problem of the North County needing more population. So either it goes into the foothills of the San Gabriel Valley, which Commissioner Holtzman doesn't like, or it goes into the northwest part of the valley. It's got to go one way or the other, or perhaps to some extent, a little of both. But those are some of the real world issues we're grappling with. It's not as simple as simply saying, keep the valley whole. That doesn't do it as a framework. It needs to have something more. So I'm hopeful that a working group can work on these maps, maybe starting with G and trying to see if we can hammer out a consensus with those 2 maps.
Commissioner Mendoza.
Thank you. And Ty, I'm going to ask that I would like to go through each of the maps quickly, starting with 2. I'm very pleased that there's less differences now between the maps, particularly between B's and Boy and G. I guess feeling as though there's a bit of a conundrum keeping historical communities of interest together, which I think we concluded is very important, could look like hacking. Conversely, combining beach communities with the inner cities could look like cracking. District 2 in the Black Vote as an example. So this is B2 up now. B2 and G have dealt with Pomona. As we've heard from testimony, the working group of which I was a part of in B2, we tried to get Temple City into District 5, but the balancing of population was just, I think, something we couldn't overcome. So that may be something we can take another take another look at. And we certainly did not have race predominate what it is that we were trying to do in our adjusting of the map. However, this map, B2 as modified, is 3 percentage points away from 3 Latino districts. And again, that was not the goal. If we could go to map F, Ty.
Yep, it's on the
Please.
left-hand side.
Oh.
Commissioner Mendoza, if you're on the iPad, would you like him to just put that map up so you can see it better?
Please. Oh, I'm sorry, B2. And what B2 map getting District 2 to the coast was not an issue of or driven by redlining of the past and deed restrictions. It was basically seeing that the LAX is definitely an economic engine, and we talked about all the ties associated with the communities in District 2. So that's what the driver was there. Okay. And what do we have now?
So this one is B2, but would you like to go into F?
Right. Please.
Okay, this one is F.
This is F?
The modified version of F1.
Okay, there it is. Now I see it. Okay. This is my least favorite. It looks like District 2 is gerrymandered just by virtue of that tentacle out to the left. To me, it looks like, I call it a land grab, moving up through District 2 all the way to Westwood and presumably UCLA. I don't know what, besides, it doesn't seem right. I'm very, very troubled by that. The boundaries don't look very contiguous on some of the other districts, but I don't want to denigrate it. It's we've heard a lot of testimony in favor of this map, but it just looks to me like this map was predominantly driven by race, in my opinion. If we can go to G now, that would be helpful.
Next, so this one is G.
Right. Okay. I'm liking it more, or wrapping my head around it. I'm still troubled by District 2 and basically taking what would be inner city all the way out to the coast. Some of the reasons I heard, I don't believe that that's correct. Maybe Mr. Adelson at some point can address that. The communities of interest, the beach communities, are, in my opinion, have different interests than the inner city interests. And this could look like, as I referred to a few minutes ago, is a cracking of potentially the black vote. So that's a little bit troubling to me. But otherwise, it's starting to look more like the B map, and something that I could work with and support. So again, B2 and the latest generation of G I'm in favor of, not so much F. Thank you.
So co-chairs, I believe that all commissioners had an opportunity.
I'm sure there's other comments, so we'll just take them as they arise. Go ahead, Commissioner Stetcher.
Thank you. I want to just answer Commissioner Kenny's question. The working group that looked at G and F did look at map 078. And in the end, we felt it was a worse problem to disconnect Pomona from the rest of the San Fernando Valley and create this loop.
San Gabriel Valley.
San Gabriel Valley, thank you. And create this loop that connected Asian communities that are miles apart. And if you disconnect that part, which we felt it was really more important that Pomona be connected to the San Fernando Valley, then the rest of the pieces of 78 no longer work, and we incorporated what we could. But we did in fact look at that.
Commissioner Snyder Soto?
I'll add, I think, also in response to Hawthorne and bringing that into District 2, we did hear from members of the Tongan community that had concern with being fractured from other Tongan communities in the Lennox area and other areas that are in District 2. So I think that's important to highlight. And then I think, I'm really, I think, concerned with dismissing what communities in District 2 and others, not just District 2, there are, of course, in other districts, but there's a lot of displacement happening in specific areas of District 2, right? So I don't know where that data may be found, but with the increase in housing costs, a lot of Black community members in that district have been pushed out. Right? So I think it's important to remember that and to consider that over the last decade and beyond. But if we want to focus on the last decades, and that's obviously connected to the census, that there's been, again, a lot that has impacted the communities there, and that there's also been a lot of organizing and work that's been done by communities to stay and remain strong, right? And keep the power that they have worked so hard to get them to where they are now, where they have some representation. So I do think that's really important for us to consider as we're thinking about where we eventually draw these lines. And again, that's not just true for that community, but there's other areas. I know, same with the San Fernando Valley, where there's a lot of development that is displacing communities. I think especially in the Van Nuys, Sylmar, Pacoima areas. Of course, same as you go into Boyle Heights, there's gentrification has had a really negative impact in a lot of these communities. So I know, again, we're not looking at the data, but it's important because part of this is bringing our own knowledge of LA County into our decision making. So I wanted to just put that on the table for us to think. And I think as I think about it a little further, I agree with Commissioner Maeda that, again, thinking of the San Diego Valley, we have heard that the AAPI community there values having representation from more than one supervisor, right? And so I think trying to process that with here that they want to be kept whole is something to think about as we move.
Commissioner Stetcher, then Commissioner Mendoza.
Yeah, very, very quickly. I thought I heard someone suggest that some of these maps in dealing with District 2 were cracking a Black community, and that's not correct. That's not the right use of the term. And we are, in fact, are trying very hard to keep the historically Black neighborhoods together in one district. So I just wanted to not misstate what's going on there.
Commissioner Mendoza, then Co-Chair Williams.
Thank you. Commissioner Soto, when you say pushing the Black people out, in what fashion is that occurring in your estimation?
I think we've heard the term gentrification, if we're familiar with that, right? And even if you don't understand that term, we know that in communities where housing costs are rising, however, the socioeconomics of that community aren't necessarily keeping up with that. We know that inevitably what happens is people have to find somewhere else to live, right? And I know, again, it's not unique to District 2, but I know that areas, Compton, Inglewood, been hit hard by gentrification, which means that Black community members and other people of color are being pushed out because they can no longer afford the area. So that's really what I was referring to.
Thank you.
Co-Chair Williams and Commissioner Franklin.
Yes, I guess my comment also addressed the incidents of gentrification. You can look at the city of Inglewood and the building of SoFi Stadium and a whole bunch of new development that the cost of housing has risen, but not only the cost of housing, the value of housing has gone up. So there are issues of what we call generational wealth, trying to keep the wealth in the Black community. If you own the home, keep the home in the family. But when you see the price of a house go up so astronomically, some people are selling and moving. But also in those communities, I can talk about just the impact of the red line and all that. They're building what they call, I guess it's housing. The cost of housing is so expensive that people cannot afford to live in those communities. And it's not just people who live there. We're talking about businesses, businesses that are owned by people of color can't afford rents. Rents have gone up in Leimert Park, which is like the heart of the Crenshaw community. The rents have gone up so much that a lot of the traditional arts and cultural stores and businesses have had a hard time trying to maintain that. So gentrification is real. So we talk about the Black population numbers declining. Some of it has to do with that. People are moving where they can afford to live. So that's real. And I know it is a concern for us. And I know it's not the first thing we're looking at, but it's definitely underlying the decisions that we're making, especially in District 2. But if you look at the numbers in terms of CVAP, you'll see that we're doing our best to look at maintaining respecting the traditional African-American communities in District 2. We're not trying to break them up, but we're also looking at the future. There's that concern for economic assets for the community. And there's still some things, we still have some tweaking to do. These maps are still not final, but those are some of the important issues in those areas. And the communities, as they try to grow, there's some unintended consequences, and some of that is impacting the numbers in those communities, whether it's not just African Americans, but we're also talking about Latinos as well.
Commissioner Franklin and Co-Chair Maeda.
Yes, very briefly, I just wanted to clarify Commissioner Sada Soto's comments about keeping in mind the progress of advocacy and community empowerment and organizing that have taken place over the decades. Because I'm African American, I live those experiences. My experience as far as community organizing since the 1960s have all been around advocating for our communities and making sure, particularly now, that we don't lose the progress that we've gained in the Black community, particularly in District 2. So I'm always cognizant of that because of who I am and the work that I've done most of my life. But I want to say as well, and I echo Co-Chair Williams regarding the economic assets and redlining that has taken place historically since the 1900s. And Commissioner Sada Soto, you're the one that, and I thank you for this, bringing that up and reminding us of that, which was extremely helpful. But I just want to say, this is very complex, and no matter what, underlining, because I am who I am, I bring a history as well. a history of work in the community that is part of who I am. But we have other communities as well. LA County is a diverse community, a diverse county. So we have other communities that we need to keep that in mind. So it's not easy. Thank you.
Co-Chair Maeda, then Commissioner Holtzman.
I have no doubt that gentrification is part of what's going on in the central city, SD1, I'm sorry, SD2 as it currently stands. But I will say that the fact that the African-American, at least by CVAP numbers, population in each of the current other districts other than SD2 has actually gone up in the past 10 years seems to suggest folks moving to the suburbs or moving out of the central city and going to some of these other areas. I don't have data, but that strikes me that that's probably what's happening. I just want to encourage folks to think about this. We have SD1 in all three maps that is very, very similar, I think. And thanks to the work of the People's Bloc, who originally configured it in a way that I think made a lot of sense. And we've been tinkering with that, but it's roughly the same. SD5, the North County, there's not a whole lot of options there, but it seems like there may be consensus to have it come down to capture the San Gabriel Valley foothills. SD3, the Valley, that's the big issue about in terms of population figures. How far does it go? Does it go to encompass Glendale and Burbank? And what are the implications of that for the North County district? Central LA district, SD2, does it go to the coast? If so, how much does it go? SD4, the southern part of the county up to Whittier. Generally have some idea what that is, maybe some at the northeast side, maybe some tinkering. The bottom side, does it include the peninsula or not? But those are sort of the general ideas that we're beginning to coalesce around. I think a working group should get to it and see if we can hammer out a consensus with this. And again, I would suggest that option G is the way to start with that.
Commissioner Holtzman and Commissioner Wong.
Well, thank you. I have a general comment about my experiences and what I've just heard about the concerns with gentrification and population displacement in the county. Like Commissioner Franklin, I'm very concerned with civil rights. I come from a very civil rights oriented family. My brother worked for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And then he worked for the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law on housing discrimination issues. His wife clerked for Thurgood Marshall on the U.S. Supreme Court. So did her brother, actually. And his wife is very close friends with, the well-known liberal justice Selena Kagan. I am trying to make sure that our plan holds up under law. And I know that we are not allowed to consider the undercount in the census this year. We have to take the numbers as we've been given them. And I think that this consideration of population trends and predicting where the populations are going in the future kind of fits into that same category of the census not capturing what we're really responding to. So I don't know if Professor Adelson would agree with me on that, but I think because that also, the discussion we've been involved with also involves race, which is, I agree, is very important. And I really think the African-American community, starting out at such a huge disadvantage is slipping these days in terms of its status in the overall county, especially South Central. But because it involves race, this consideration of population trends that we've been talking about, I think it's something we need to be kind of cautious about using as a justification for districting. So there's my thoughts.
Commissioner Wong.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we all, or many of us on the commission, consider ourselves social justice advocates so completely. So that is why we're struggling so much with trying to balance the considerations of race, history, economics. So I just, I understand that, but I did just want to just address a couple of comments that some commissioners have made, and especially kind of highlight what Commissioner Sarasota was saying in terms of the communities having worked so many years to try to move forward, in empowering their communities, and finally perhaps feeling like they have a voice. And I think that comments when the public says they want to stay in the same district or stay with the same supervisors is more saying that they have been working for a long time to become to have a voice in their communities, to have a political voice. And so with respect to comments around that, I look to it as strengthening their argument to be kept together as a community of interest, not so much that they want to just stay with the same supervisor or stay in the same district, but that they have been working together for many years. And so at any rate, I just wanted to just kind of highlight that. And also I wanted to kind of address Commissioner kind of Stetcher's comment about the misuse of the word cracking or even packing or those terms. And I agree that that's not really I think what we're talking about, or at least that's not what I'm talking about when I say I'm concerned about the percentage of minorities in certain districts under like map B2, because I think that there's a way that we can draw the maps, and which is why I support either F1 or versions of G or even 78, where we have the choice to be able to draw districts so we don't have to draw it in such a way so that minorities, have to be kind of concentrated or put into certain districts, but can actually, we could draw the line such that we can have two, majority, minority, that next districts, because historically they're in certain discrete areas, and we can have a competitive district where the African American and Black communities can have a voice and representation without having, to worry about, being put in a majority Latinx districts. Not that we need to do that, that we're required to do that, but in order to have a more fair and representative districts that represent kind of the total population, the CVAP populations in LA County, I think we should just explore that and try to do that if we can.
I see no other commissioner hands. Oh, Commissioner Stetcher?
Would the co-chairs welcome a motion at this point to elevate our maps to current status? Because I'm prepared to move that if you think the discussion has reached that point.
Are you talking about the modified working group versions?
Yes, I would move that we elevate map options 082, 083, and 084 to be our new F2, B3, and G1 respectively. And then subsequently, we can talk about whether we want to narrow this list or make an assignment to a working group.
That's the motion. Is there a second? I'm sorry.
Commissioner Mendoza's hand is up.
Commissioner Mendoza, you second?
No,
Oh.
but a question. With me, but a few commissioners talked early on about eliminating one of the maps. I'm wondering if maybe we do that first, if there's consensus.
Well, first, we don't have a second to the motion yet, as far as I could tell. Was there a second?
Commissioner Stetcher's motion.
Okay, Commissioner Kenny seconds. Okay, Commissioner Mendoza, you wanted to instead of proceeding with a vote on that, you want to make a motion to eliminate one of these maps. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, but I think Commissioner Stetcher was also talking about maybe doing that after. So I don't, I don't know what the wish of the commission is, but I thought we were going to try to narrow down the number of maps, which would mean less that we each have to do in the limited amount of time that we have. But that's just my point.
It certainly would be helpful if we can begin to narrow the list, but it's Commissioner Stetcher's motion, as I understand it, is to elevate these three working group versions as maps that we are considering, I guess, let the public know we've are viewing these as the operative map options, and then we could then have a motion if there is consensus to do so, or if someone wants to make that motion to eliminate one or more of these. Is that, Commissioner Stetcher, is that my understanding correct? That's what your thought is?
Yes, these would replace as our active maps F1, B2, and G.
Commissioner Obregon?
Yeah, sometimes when we speak on the F numbers, the letters, we already have modified them, so they're kind of changed. So it'd be nice to be able to be specific. And in my notes and from what we spoke on earlier, and I'd like to try to make two maps as our guides. And I'd like to recommend 83 and 84.
Okay, so Commissioner Obregon, what we're talking about right now with Commissioner Stetcher's motion is to go ahead and elevate 83, 84. Is it 83, 84, 85?
82, 83.
82, 83, 84 as the maps that we are, considering as.
Understood. I was trying to narrow that down to two.
I understand that. And as we've been discussing, we're trying to vote on putting those three, and then we could entertain a motion to reduce or to eliminate one of those three. That's the process that we're discussing right now. I understand what you're saying. You want to eliminate one. Can you hold that? Are you willing to hold that until after we vote on elevating, so that we're talking about the same things, 82, 83, and 84, the modified working group versions of maps F1, B2, or is it B2, F1, G? I think is the way it works.
Can we stick to the numbers to be specific?
That's what we're trying to do, Commissioner Obregon. We're trying to say 82, 83, and 84 are going to be the ones that we then could decide which to eliminate, if any. That's all we're doing.
Yes. 82, 83, and 84 is what we want to vote on.
That
what you're
is
saying.
correct.
And I was suggesting we only vote on 83 and 84.
Okay. Are you willing to hold that thought until after we vote on 82, 83, and 84?
I guess I have to.
No, you don't have to, but I'm asking you to, if you're willing to do that, so that we can have an orderly process and everyone is on the same
We
page.
have 9 days, and that's my concern. So yes, we can delay it by doing this. Yes, I understand.
Thank you, Commissioner Holtzman.
I think it would be a good idea to get the precise wording of this motion on the screen, particularly whether we're advancing these maps as the maps to be advanced, or maps to be advanced, some maps to be advanced to our next meeting.
I'm not sure I understand the difference, but we could, maybe Gayla could type that on the.
The difference, and I'd like Commissioner Stetcher to clarify it, is could we add more maps after considering this motion, even if it passes?
This motion doesn't preclude us from considering more maps, but it does replace the 3 maps that we have officially designated as our base maps with the updated maps that the working groups modified, putting cities back together and things like that.
Commissioner Morales.
Yeah, I was somewhere on the Commissioner Holtzman's comment about typing this up so we know what we're voting on. And specifically just narrowing down just by numbers would be super simple because I had a hard time in the beginning, like looking at the wrong map that had already been modified, thinking it was the modified version because I wasn't part of that working group. So having said that, I do agree. Let's get these elevated and let's figure out what we can do afterwards.
Okay, Commissioner Setcher, is that, whoops.
Well, actually, I had incremented the numbers so that they, instead of becoming F1, it became F2. And instead of becoming B2, it became B3, and it became G1. But so that historically we weren't erasing any maps, we were just, yes.
Perfect. Commissioner Kinney, is this fine?
And
Yes. Yes.
Great.
so
Holly?
I just want to make sure the record is clear on the scope of the motion for the commission and for the public. So this still leaves open that there could be a subsequent vote to eliminate one of these maps during this meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
And
So I just wanted to make sure all the commissioners knew that and the public knew that, which can be done. I just, this motion is just simply clarifying which ones are now on the table, period,
correct.
for further discussion.
And as to Commissioner Holtzman's point, we're also not saying these are the only ones we may consider.
Absolutely. Understood.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, Ty, let's take roll.
Commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Obregon?
Let me abstain on this one.
Commissioner Saider Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Setcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Vento? Commissioner Vento? Moving on. Co-Chair Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Wong?
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Holtzman?
I'm not really a fan of any of them, so I'm sorry, no.
Commissioner Kenny?
Yes.
Co-Chair Maeda?
Aye.
Commissioner Mendoza?
Aye.
Commissioner Morales?
Yes.
And then returning to Commissioner Vento, if you're still with us.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Are there other motions for consideration?
Commissioner Kenny, then Commissioner Holtzman. Commissioner Kenny, you are muted.
I would like to move that we eliminate the new F2 as base maps for further consideration. As a base map for further consideration.
That is map 82, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner Franklin seconds.
Co-Chair Williams, your hand is up. Oh.
I'm good. It was to second the motion, but that's fine.
Okay. Commissioner Vento?
Yes. Ty, is it possible that you could show us map 82 right now, just so we can take a look at it?
Of course.
If I was wondering if it's possible, if Commissioner Kenny, can you maybe elaborate, or those that are in favor of eliminating this map, maybe they could share some input as to why they want to get rid of it?
I do like some aspects of this map. In particular, the way it treats the northern San Fernando Valley. But I think the fact that it has the arm of District 3 going down the coast is can't be justified. And I also think that District 4 is now kind of the stepchild of District 2 and District 1. And it also includes parts of the county that don't really have much to do with each other. And I also feel that District 2 incorporating UCLA is a bridge too far. Those are my reasons.
Commissioner Satter-Soto, I believe your hand was up. Did I accidentally lower your hand?
No, is this time for response or comment before we vote?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I just, I want to put out there that we do have a lot of support for map F still. And so I do find it a challenge to eliminate it at this point, because I do think that there are aspects of the map that are quite strong. And so to eliminate it as a base map, I don't agree and I don't support it.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Just for procedural correctness, I oppose eliminating anything until after our last official public hearing. We could do it quickly right after the hearing, but I'm not in favor of eliminating anything now. Thanks.
Commissioner Holtzman, your hand is up again. Okay, Commissioner Stetcher?
I don't think we should eliminate F at this time because it meets some very important needs of parts of the county. And it's so different than the others that it represents an alternative way of thinking about things. I'm not sure how we're going to end our deliberations, but if it were my choice, I'd eliminate one of the other two maps that are more similar. And then this gives us two distinct directions to go and trying to resolve bigger differences.
Co-Chair Williams?
I was going to basically say the same thing that Commissioner Stetcher said. I'd like to keep F1, F2, keep this map for consideration. And since there's so much similarities between G and B, I'd like to vote that we eliminate one of them. And I would probably say, let's eliminate B at this point and elevate G and F for consideration.
Commissioner Kenny?
Thank you. Yes, I just want to comment that I believe that F and G are similar. Particularly in the way they treat the southern part of the county. So I guess it's in the eye of the beholder.
Can we put up all three maps? Is it possible?
Do you want them side by side?
Yes, side by side.
Okay, just give me a moment.
Thank you.
While Ty is doing this, one of the co-chairs, could you kind of lay out what our next few meetings will are and when we will have an opportunity to kind of engage in further discussion and what the working group option might be that you alluded to?
So as I understand it, there currently is no other meeting between now and Tuesday, which is our final public hearing, starting at 6:30 and going probably until we're done. In other words, I doubt that we will have much, if any, time to deliberate after the public hearing on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we do have a special meeting, which I think would be scheduled to start at 7. That we can probably confine the amount of public comment to a half hour, and then we could, use the rest of the time to deliberate. And then we have currently a special meeting set for the 12th of December, at which time we should adopt a final map for consideration, a final map. And the reason I say that is because, as you all know, our deadline is the 15th, but it's not going to be possible to adopt a map if we haven't already done so on the 15th and get it to the point where we can actually submit it, because it's not good enough for us to vote. We also have to actually physically, but we have to present the map with the report. And there's a whole bunch of audit stuff that has to be done to make sure, in fact, this is the map, because once we submit it, that's it. And if there's mistakes in it, that's going to be a big problem. And Holly can probably elaborate exactly a little bit more about what will be entailed, and maybe Gail as well. But I've looked at I think it was the previous redistricting map, and it is more than simply showing a line drawing. It is District 3 is comprised of this, and there's a whole bunch of text that talks about the RDUs, the blocks, and certain blocks going here and so forth. It's extremely complex. We'll need some time after we adopt a map to get it in shape to be able to actually file it on Wednesday.
And that's only 3 days. If you're looking at from Sunday to Wednesday, that's a lot of time to complete that map. And there still may be a little tweaking that we have to do after we vote on, we select our final map and present it on the 12th. Holly, I'm sorry, you want to go ahead?
No, I was just going to echo the comment that, ArcBridge is going to be, in an all-out press of work to then pull together the list of the census tracts, et cetera, so that we can describe it and attach it to the resolution. And we want to make sure it's accurate, but not even to mention the amount of work involved in coming up with that list. So it's important that we know what the map is anticipated to be. I mean, obviously the final vote will be on Wednesday, but that's precious little. It's actually only 2 and part of a working day to pull all that together, which is a big lift.
But basically, we cannot wait until Wednesday to select between maps. We will have to select a map on Sunday, the 12th.
Commissioner Holtzman, then Commissioner Kenny.
Well, if it's helpful with this business about the final things we have to do, I've been watching the San Diego Commission still, the San Diego County Commission, and they already have draft pro forma resolutions that they're considering adopting, so they can just fill in the census tracts and blocks for each district. It might be a good idea for us to follow suit. And they also have one for adopting the report, which would, for issuing the report that goes with our final map. So that might be a good idea. I don't think, dumping those tracks and blocks in their case, or RDUs in our case, out of a shapefile is particularly difficult. I think right now you can, if you want to, I haven't done it, export the contents of a shapefile in terms of RDUs to a spreadsheet. And you just copy those numbers off the spreadsheet for each district, paste them into the resolution, and that's done. So I don't think if we're prepared with the bones of a resolution, that would take more than an hour.
I'll defer to Pretty on how long that'll take. I have already drafted the 2 resolutions, one for adopting the map and one for adopting the final report. And once we get a little bit closer to what we know what we're going to do, we can put those on the agenda in advance of the 15th. So those are ready to go.
I think that would be a good idea to give the commission a chance to review those as soon as possible.
Commissioner Kenny, then Preeti.
I have a question for Holly. This slide shows that the final decision is Wednesday, December 15th. Do we have to file the map with the county clerk on December 15th, And if so, is the county clerk going to stay open so that we can file it after whenever time they normally close?
The statute does say that we should adopt and file the map that day. And I know we've been in discussions with the clerk, or Gail has been in discussions with the clerk about, in what form they need to get it. So that will be something we work on.
Yeah, can we do that by email?
Well, I think we need to get that resolved, because if we meet at 7 p.m. and the county clerk's office is closed, we're going to miss the deadline, as the commission in the state of Washington did a few weeks ago.
Good point.
Unless we can do it by email.
I mean, it would be silly to
It's on the
inadvertently
radar.
miss the deadline.
It's on the radar.
Yes.
Okay.
But I will confirm with Dean Logan's office, but my understanding is we would email it and make it available. But that does mean you do need to make a decision so everything can be packaged and delivered by midnight.
By 11:59. Okay.
Maybe also add one more thing. These lists that Arkbridge will be putting together, I can show you what the report looks like from 2011. It lists the census tracts, and when a census tract is divided across a city boundary, Pretty has to go through and indicate which blocks go with what city. So it has that level of precision, which is what we want to confirm.
But we could do this, I'm sorry, but we could do this by RDU, because that's what we have in our software. And we could just reference the document wherever it is that defines the RDUs by census tract and block. And we wouldn't have to do census tracts and blocks, because we have RDUs.
So we have a meeting that we're trying to set up with Arkbridge and the county to get more of the details. In the past, they've done it, the reporting by the actual census tract. So
well, they can convert RDUs to census tracts. For our legal requirements, we could do it by RDU. They can do the work after that. That's what I'm saying.
I will ask. And then there's one other component part is the justification. And that's going to take more time, I believe, than just writing up the census blocks. Because what we need to do is look at the final map, look at the criteria, look at each of the 5 subsorial districts. And it's not defending the process at this point, it's defending the map. And that's not only going to require drafting it, but having Holly legal counsel review it, Bruce Adelson review it, to make sure it's a very tight definition of what the final map is and its justification.
And I still actually have the floor, but I wanted to point out that the new B3 is different from G1 in how it treats the San Fernando Valley District 3. So G1 and F2 treat the northern San Fernando Valley pretty much the same. And so if you're trying to get 2 different maps, I think B2 and G1 would be a better pairing. Thank you.
Preeti, then Commissioner Vento.
Gayla, I just wanted you to show the report that was done in 2011 so that everyone gets an idea of the time requirement that it would have.
I'm pulling it up now. If you want to take another comment while I get it on the screen.
Commissioner Vento.
I don't know who to direct this comment, but I just wanted to kind of go over the last couple of meetings so I can have a point of clarification. So I know that we're meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, and then next Sunday we're having a special meeting, and that's for more public input, I believe.
No, it's pretty much for us to select the final map.
Oh, okay. So next Sunday is when we're going to vote on the final map. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So then what is the December 15th? What are we doing on December 15th?
So if we adopt a final map or we agree on a final map by the 12th, then that all the work we're talking about now in terms of getting the text finalized and all that is going to be prepared, as well as the justification for making that decision. Then the 15th, we'll discuss that and put our stamp to the final text and map combination, as well as the justification in the final report, and we'll adopt those.
Got it. Thank you.
Moving on, Commissioner Holtzman, then Co-Chair Williams.
Just wanted to point out that compared to 2011, the law that governs the report that we have to issue with our map is like different law. So let's not say that we have to do something like this on the 15th that we're about to see. The report that we have to issue does not have to be our final report. Keep that in mind. It just has to meet certain statutory criteria. This commission will continue to exist until the first member of the next decade's commission gets appointed. So we will have time to hone a big final report. What we need to do is focus on the small amount of tasks that we are mandated to do by law, and that's going to be different from what you're going to see from 10 years ago.
Co-Chair Williams.
Yes, I just want to point out that in addition to those meetings, we will still need to have working groups to finalize these maps and make some decisions. So the more we're able to make a decision on which maps we want to go forward with, we're able to look at the times and dates we're going to have to work on. Plus, we have a working group that's working on that report as well. So I'm reminding, I guess, as Commissioner Franklin said, TikTok. We have some critical dates, but we also have some critical tasks we need to do and to complete within a week. So I want to put that on the table as we start to talk about maps and, where do we want to go? Time is ticking quickly.
I just want to bring to the table that typically we create a block equivalency report, which means that we have a complete block identifier and a district assigned to it. That is something that can be done pretty quickly, but the report that I have been shown is more involved.
Commissioner Holtzman.
Yeah, thank you for that, Pretty. I'm sure that can be done pretty quickly. We could do it even more quickly if we just use RDUs, I think, but we could also follow up with that block report. In fact, in my sort of legal opinion, I think if we had to, the last minute, we could approve and send over a shapefile of a map that we've all seen on screen and have that be legally sufficient to describe the final map. Then we could, follow up with more if needed, but we would also need the report that goes with it.
Pretty?
Yeah, the shapefile is fine, and we can have the shapefile, and the block equivalency file is also very good. And Mr. Edelson can testify to that the block equivalency file is what the Department of Justice needs. And if we can do that, we are in compliance.
Except we don't need Department of Justice pre-clearance. No.
No, we don't need the pre-clearance, but that is a universally accepted report, which we call the block equivalency report. And that is basically every block in the shapefile. We don't work at the RDU level, but every block would have a district assigned to it. But this is a report that was done in 2011, and it's more involved.
So the first part, it goes through each supervisorial district. So the first part for each supervisorial district lists the whole census tracts. And then the second part has the portion that's contained in different cities. And then for each district, there's another part which goes through the blocks within the tracts that belong in specific cities. And the other thing, I don't think you need to take the commissioner time right now. we are meeting with the county. We're working on setting up the date this week for Arkbridge to talk to them. We can see if it can be RDUs. We also are going to be adding ESRI because there may be an easy solution as well. But traditionally they have used these blocks. So allow us to continue to do our research on this.
Co-Chair Williams?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify where we were headed. I think we were having a discussion on voting on the maps. And I just want to make sure that we're moving in that direction. And, you know, I think we've had a great discussion because we need to consider the time and all of that. But I think we need to move forward on this discussion. And I think we have a motion on the floor as well.
And just for folks to know, from left to right, we have now the now B3, in the middle, the now F2, and on the right, the now G1.
Are we ready to vote on the motion? I'm sorry, Holly, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I believe we have the motion and a second on the floor. There was discussion to eliminate map F2. So I think we would be ready for a vote unless there's further discussion.
And F2 is the one in the middle, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Okay, let's take roll.
I just want to say that the screen shows F1.
It's
and the
OP082. It hasn't been upgraded to F2 in the software yet. We're in the meeting at the moment, so. So commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Commissioner Sider Soto?
No.
Commissioner Brian Setcher?
No.
Commissioner John Bento?
No.
Co-Chair Carolyn Williams?
No.
Commissioner Dorina Wong?
No.
Commissioner Jean Franklin?
Yes.
Commissioner David Holtzman?
No.
Commissioner Mary Kenny?
Yes.
Co-Chair Daniel Maeda?
No.
Commissioner Mark Mendoza?
Aye.
Commissioner Apolonio Morales?
No.
And Commissioner Nelson Obregon?
Yes.
Motion fails.
Are there any other motions tonight?
Commissioner Holtzman?
All right. Ty, would you do me the favor of bringing up map 86, please?
Okay, so just give me a moment with that.
While he's doing that, I will say that as the only commissioner in the Valley who lives in Burbank, I really think it's important to have one or two additional maps elevated specifically for public comment that contain Burbank, and Glendale in the same district as most of the San Fernando Valley. This one does, and we're still waiting for it to see it.
Okay, and
And also, I don't think Burbank and Glendale particularly want to be with District 5, you know, with the North County. So. I don't see it.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, so we have OP086.
Okay, so you can see that there. It's an improvement on option G and map 78, which was derived from option G, and you can see that it does keep you know, the bulk of the valley whole and does not exclude Burbank and does not exclude Glendale. So I move that we elevate this map for particular attention in public comments going forward.
Is there a second?
Guess nobody else lives in the valley.
Seeing no second, I will say that there are a number of maps that have been submitted since some of this consideration. And this one, I know, I believe you, Commissioner Holtzman, correct me if I'm wrong, this is sort of a gloss on 60 or 70.
It's a gloss on map G, and then the one that was submitted later by, I think,
78, yeah.
by the VICA people. You know. All right, so if I don't have a second on that one, oh wait, there's a hand. Yay.
Okay, but before we get to the hand, so let me just say that undoubtedly, if there is a working group working on this, they will be looking at some of these later maps, including this one. But Commissioner Wong, can you have a comment?
Yes, I had a comment, but I didn't want to. It wasn't to second the motion, but I just wanted to clarify that you know, although I do live technically in LA County, LA City, I am about 2 blocks from Burbank, so I actually spend most of my living time. I'm 2 blocks from Burbank in the San Fernando Valley. So I just want to clarify. I just want to clarify that there is, you know, someone else on the commission that understands the San Fernando Valley as well. That's all.
I appreciate that. Anyway, so while I still have the floor, because I didn't get a second on that motion, that's great to hear. Stuart Waldman said I was the only one. Anyway, Ty, could you just go down one number and call up plan OP 86, please?
This is currently OP 86.
I mean, sorry, OP 85, one down from 86, yeah. So that last one was, you know, based on other people's maps, whatever.
Coach, while those maps are being pulled up, I just want you to know you're at the time when you'd normally would take a break. So you might want to think about the potential need for that.
Chairs, did you want to respond to that?
I was hoping to wrap this up, but I don't know about Co-Chair Williams.
I was hoping that we could wrap it up too.
Okay, so let me quickly offer this map up for advancement for elevation for particular public attention going forward. This is map 85. You'll see it has a western connection of Las Virgenes and communities with planned housing developments to North County and the Santa Clarita, Valencia, Stevenson Ranch area, which also has planned housing developments, and avoids the political gerrymander of having District 5 come down the east side of the county. And it has most of District 3 be San Fernando Valley residents, probably if she lives 2 blocks from Burbank, including Commissioner Wong. So that's my motion. Thank you.
Did you, I just have a point of clarification. Did you, the motion you made did not get a second. Did you just change that motion, or I'm not sure?
No, I withdrew that, made a new one on this new map, on this other map.
Okay, I think I had my hand up if your motion did not pass, so I'm not sure.
I think I still had the floor, but if it, whatever, either way, whatever your pleasure is, I'd like to offer this motion. But if you'd like to do something before I formally offer the motion, go right ahead.
I wasn't sure if you still had the floor. I just wanted the clarification of that.
I thought I did, but whatever. Did I have the floor, Co-Chair Maeda?
I don't know at this point, but let's say you're offering your motion. Is there a second to this motion to elevate this map, newly submitted map, to as one of our map options for public hearing?
Before I second, just for clarification on this map, San Fernando Valley. What is the percentage of wholeness in San Fernando Valley?
Okay, that's in the text that I submitted with this map. Hang on, I will call it up because I can do it. It's Yeah, 68.43% of District 3 is San Fernando Valley. That's almost 70% population-wise.
All right, well, I'll second.
Thank you.
Any further discussion, Co-Chair Williams?
No, sorry.
Can we vote on this then? Go ahead, Ty.
All right, commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic. Commissioner Stetcher?
Commissioner Setter chatted with me and said he had to leave, so he's not here.
Okay. Commissioner Vento?
Yes.
Co-Chair Williams?
No.
Commissioner Wong?
No.
Commissioner Franklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenny?
No.
Co-Chair Maeda?
No.
Commissioner Mendoza?
No.
Commissioner Morales?
No.
Commissioner Obregon?
No.
And Commissioner Soto? Commissioner Sider Soto? I believe Commissioner.
No.
Okay, no. Motion fails.
No.
Co-Chair Williams?
I'd like to make a motion that we refer map F for consideration, and for the working group to look at B. What I really want to say, let me tell you how I want to say it and maybe make it clear. I like to see a working group that will look at F, and a working group that would somehow look at combining B and G, the best of B and G, for 2 maps for us to consider. So go ahead.
I was going to say that we cannot create a new working group. That was not put on the agenda. If an existing working group is regarding one of those maps, can work on it, that's one thing, but we cannot create a new working group. But we can put that on a future agenda, so we have that ability in the future if you want to create a new one.
No, I don't. Well, what F2 and G came from the same working group, and B is from a different working group. I would like to see an evolution of F move forward, and an evolution of B. So whether F becomes G or however, I'll leave that up to the group to decide. And so there is a working group that is working on B, one working group that would look at map F.
Co-Chair Williams, I'm trying to capture this. I think you have one work group that looked at G.
One looked at F.
And then B, that work group was a different one, developed a map that also went to the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
So I think you're thinking of maybe work group that looked at G might look at B to see if it could be consolidated.
Yes.
That would all be the same group.
Right.
I got my hand up.
Okay.
That would all be the same group because one group looked at F and G, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's when, one group looked at F and G. G came out of F.
So
And B, go ahead.
Excuse me. I was going to say the working group. I think it. Holly can chime in, but working group that was assigned to B can take on the G, and the working group that had the F can continue with the F.
I recommend against that because then you're going to have crossovers. We work hard to keep the working groups at 6 or below. And then if you start having crossover between the working groups, it just can, it creates potential risk of Brown Act violations for serial meetings or daisy chain type meetings. So I recommend that that any work group activity that happens that it be the same working groups and then there not be crossover. Any crossover discussion, takes place at these meetings, these public meetings.
Because the way the maps were created, working group that created B needs to work on B, and the working group that created F and G needs to look at, I guess, can look at how do you evolve F and G? How do you evolve F? I guess maybe that's where we're headed. And G, I guess, is not under consideration, and we're looking at B. I'm trying to figure this out because we cannot cross over those working groups, which means either G or B does not move forward. Maybe that's what I'm looking at.
Well, we just voted to have all three
F move forward. Right.
None of them were eliminated.
Okay.
Co-Chair Williams, I know that the work group started talking about how map B and G both went to the ocean, but there were some very specific differences.
Right.
And that those two maps might be looked at by a group. And since G was the one that came up with the idea of going to the ocean and following Holly's advice, that might be the work group that then would see if there's a possibility of coming up with a merged version.
Can the work group that created B actually look at map G?
No, that's what I asked about. She said no.
That's what I thought.
I would be trouble if the G group, see, getting to the ocean, I think there were two very distinct rationales that were employed to get there. So as I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of trouble with how it was done with the G map. So I don't know what to say.
Co-Chair Williams, are you done?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to create a motion that moves us forward and gets us moving from here to the next step. And that's where the confusion is, because we're going to have to eliminate. Can we eliminate map G? I make a motion to eliminate map G and move forward with map F and B.
Is there a second?
I see a few hands from commissioners, but I believe Commissioner Kenny, your hand is for something else.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Commissioner Wong.
Yes, I don't feel like I would want to eliminate G right now.
Okay,
if I were
can
to
we
eliminate.
Okay, I'm looking for a second. Is there a second?
Okay.
Seeing no second. Commissioner Kenny.
So can the working group, Holly, can the working group try to combine F and G? Because that's the same working group that was working on F and G previously.
Yes, and let me just clarify what I'm talking about with the crossover of the groups. I'm talking about the crossover of the membership of the groups. The working group for B can look at B, they can look at G, and amongst themselves, just only those that were on B, say, here's ideas how we could adjust B, incorporating some ideas from G. And then the group that is F and G, no membership crossover whatsoever, just look at tweaks they may make or how they combine those maps or suggested eliminations of one.
So one working group could look to combine B and G, and the other working group could look to combine F1 and G.
Yes, and the group that would consider B and G, my recommendation is they be the working group that was from B and only B, and there's no members crossover between the two.
So that would help Co-Chair Williams get down to the idea of maybe eliminating, well, we end up, if the new maps are acceptable to the commission, we end up eliminating G. Because it's will have already been combined into the new B and the new F. Is she smiling?
If
It's basically, yeah, we would combine G and B. We would move that ahead in some way, and one group would be looking at F. So however they want to, however that was said. So yeah, but don't ask me to put it. Let me see if I can make a motion. I'd like to move forward that we have the working groups create a map that we can consider for map F, and a working group that looks at taking District 2 to the ocean, which basically looks at B, 3, and G. Okay, is that, Holly, does that work? So the working group, so it's not a work, we would have the map F working group consider moving F forward, that map evolving, what is it, continuing to work on map F for presentation at the next meeting. And then the working group that looked at B, this is kind of confusing.
To me, it would be clearer if you, I think focusing on SD2 is what I think kind of
Yes.
is the confusion, and you could just say have the other working group look at combining maps 3 and G.
Okay. Kayla, can you, I'd like to make a motion that we would have one group work on map F2, and the other working group look at combining map B and G, whatever, B3, G2, whatever that is.
And just to clarify, these are the already existing working groups. I'm just clarifying it for the group and the public. Yes. These are the already existing working groups, and with the original membership.
And I believe it should be G1.
So okay, Gail, are you asking me, waiting on me to refine that?
So I typed it up. Can you all see it on the screen?
No, I don't see anything.
Oh.
Yes.
I do.
Oh, now it's gone.
I don't.
No, it's gone.
I can see it.
Okay.
I don't see. Okay, there it is.
Did I capture it?
Yes. Okay, and have the. Okay. Yeah. So we're clear which map, which group is which, I'm sure. The group that originally worked on map F would continue working on map F. The group that originally worked on map B would now look at map G.
So let me just point out, today is Sunday. Your public hearing is Tuesday evening. You normally would want to post these 24 hours ahead. But in the interest of time, I guess we could meet Monday or Tuesday.
You could just alter your motion a bit by just removing the time constraint of presenting it at the next public hearing. But,
okay. All right.
And if you, I mean, it'd be nice. There you go. And that.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
All right, that's the motion. Is there a second? I'll second. Further discussion?
I see a hand from Commissioner Obregon, then Co-Chair Maeda and Commissioner Holtzman.
Originally, we were using numbers and that kind of for clarity purposes. I had thought we had advanced 82, 83, and 84 as the maps we were going to further consider.
It's a good point. Gayla, can you go ahead and add those to the motion? I'm sure Co-Chair Williams would be fine with adding the numbered.
I totally agree. Let's add the map numbers because we're talking the same thing.
Right. And as a second, I agree.
Help me.
Clarity. That was my issue there.
Yeah,
So F is now what number again?
082.
F2 is 082. B3 was 083. Yeah, 083. And G1 was 084.
Thank you.
Thank you. That definitely was needed. Thank you, Commissioner Obregon.
I see Co-Chair Maeda's hand.
And is there a chance that we could see them real quick?
I can share my screen. Yes. Okay. From left to right, we have the now new B3. The middle is the new F2, and then the one on the right is G1.
Okay, who's next?
Okay. Commissioner Holtzman.
I'm just concerned with the word final being in there for the first working group. I don't think we should be saying they're going to come up with a final map, because then why would the other working group do any work? Or I don't know, maybe take the word final out if that's
I did
amenable.
Yes, that works.
Commissioner Sider Soto, then Commissioner Kenny.
To clarify, would we then end up with map 82, 83, 84, and then a combination of B and G, so therefore a fourth map?
If the working group comes up with an additional map that can be posted, it'll be posted next in number, whatever that number is.
Yes, and we would, we leave it up to that working group, but hopefully they'll be able to reconcile the differences. But maybe, we'll leave it up to the working group, but it'll be new numbers for that map, right? Is that what you're asking?
We would renumber.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering if we're dwindling down or if we're actually creating a fourth option.
So the work group could decide if it's radically different. It could become map H is what you're thinking of, but it would have to first be an OP number. You would have to look at it as a full commission and then decide if you want to elevate it, and then it probably would become an H.
Yeah, but then it'll just have new map numbers at that point.
Commissioner Kenny? Oh, sorry. Kayla?
No, I was just going to mention, we also don't know how much public comment there will be and how much time at the front end you want to give to presenting an option or options. Just something to keep in mind. We do have the Wednesday regular meeting on December 8th, where maybe that kind of refinement could occur.
Commissioner Kenny?
Yes, I'd just like to remind everyone that the map F2 actually has District 2 going all the way to the ocean, but it's only the District 3 is connected via Dockweiler Beach from the north to the south, even though it looks different from what we're looking at. Is that correct, Gayla?
That is correct. It is Dockweiler, and we would need to split the RDU for the final reporting if you go with that option. And it would probably include portions of Westchester, because when we looked at that, those were sort of larger area. It wasn't just LAX, it was also parts of Westchester.
So when the working group looks at that map, they need to clarify exactly what it is, because it's not going to, if it ends up looking different than what we're showing on the screen.
Any other comments, questions, or can we vote?
Commissioner Obregon?
When I look at maps 82 and 84, they look the same, especially for the valley, and they almost look like they came from the same creator. I do notice a little bit of difference in the south end, of course. But yeah, I was trying to, it jumps out at me, and the northern line looks exactly the same on District 1. So I'm seeing a lot of similarities between supposedly two different maps. The whole northern line looks the exact same.
Thank you. Any other comments before we can vote? Let's vote.
Okay, so commissioners, please be prepared to unmute your mic and respond when your name is called. Co-chair Williams?
Did you call? I didn't.
Yes,
were you-
Co-chair Williams?
Yeah, yes.
Commissioner Wong?
Yes.
Commissioner Franklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Holtzman?
Abstain.
Commissioner Kenny?
Yes.
Co-chair Maeda?
Aye.
Commissioner Mendoza?
Aye.
Commissioner Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Obregon?
Yes.
Commissioner Sider Soto?
Yes.
And Commissioner John Vento?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion, motions, whatever, before we adjourn for today? I think we got a lot done. I appreciate it. You're hanging in there all this time. Anything else on the agenda, Gayla?
We've already covered the calendar, so nothing more on my end.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I guess for working group, we're gonna, what's the best way to proceed?
So I'm going to send out a quick email right after this meeting to the two different work groups with some suggested times and see if one works. And we'll try for Monday if possible.
Right. And thanks for your flexibility if you can to work on these things. But thanks very much, everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Adjourn.
Good
Good night.
evening. Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye.